My entitled coworkers literally bring me out to a job site just so they can have a scapegoat and blame me for things going wrong. But it's here that I got revenge by literally putting them in their place, while also most likely putting their jobs in jeopardy. Here's how it's all going down. Okay, I want to start off by saying that this is unfolding basically in real time, but at this point we are near like the end of the story. This story is also a bit technical in nature, but I've tried to spare as many details as possible. Now, my company does industrial software globally, which involves multiple modules interacting with physical processes. Projects often involved installation and testing locally, but my team's part is able to be deployed and tested about 90% remotely. There was one project in North America where my team's software was deployed months ago, and we've only had to deal with fairly minor bugs ever since then. However, the project overall is running incredibly late, and the local team is struggling hard. So 3 weeks ago, they asked me to fly out about halfway across the world just to fix it while I finish off the last 10%. I arrive and I find that the other key software module in the system barely works, but the people on site who are supposed to be working on it, instead of knuckling down and fixing it, have basically been blaming everything else. Talking to the other team members, I find out that these guys have spent the last month literally blaming the mechanical, the electrical, and the designers and the fitters and the technicians, often without any real basis. When I arrive, they seem happy that I'm here to fix things, but about a week later, much to nobody's shock, they start trying to blame me for their problems as well. Now, I tolerate this for about a week, explaining to them how the system should work as I was a key designer, collecting logs and evidence of the problems and performing root cause analysis just to help them locate the problem with their code, but it literally doesn't stop them from trying. But even still, it keeps my hands clear and it makes progress for me going home. But then suddenly, last Friday, I get a baffling email from the group of them. Apparently, they had met at a time where the project manager knew I was not available, and they constructed an elaborate theory about how the software I was responsible for was somehow doing the wrong thing. And they had then convinced the project manager, who was non-technical, into backing them up. In a call to discuss it, I was told by the project manager that I was responsible for collaborating with the team to fix this issue, which had resulted in delays to project milestones. And trust me, I tried to explain my side of things, but I just got shouted down in the call. I then experienced a very powerful moment of clarity about what is happening and just immediately changed my strategy. And with that shift, I explain again that I consider the issue to be unlikely, and it's here that I demand to see hard evidence backing this claim. But as you can probably guess, they can't produce anything beyond them saying, well, the data at this breakpoint isn't what it should be, which I explain is not conclusive, as it could still be the fault of their code. I then spend half the shift trying to replicate the problem and capturing network traffic logs between the two systems, which is the interface where these systems interact. But no matter how hard I try, I cannot replicate it. Instead of delivering it just to them as I had been, I copy in my management back home all the way to the top, along with a paper trail explaining and showing how I had been blindsided and demanded to fix a problem that could be tracked to my area of responsibility, all without any kind of evidence. I then documented names and exactly how much time had been wasted. Well, it turns out I'm not alone. Some people privately reached out to me asking for more details, explaining that they are seeing a similar thing unfolding on a different project run by members of the same team. And you know what? I was happy to oblige. Well, in the middle of the shift, I explained this in clear terms to them, and they literally lose their minds, denying what they had done. They're backtracking, trying to blame me some more, and one of them even looked like they might start crying. The next day, I sent a formal letter to Human Resources back home, withdrawing my consent to be there, with all the legalese referencing my employment agreement and specific legal statutes, and explaining that, among other reasons, this has become an unsafe and uncollaborative work environment. And thankfully, they also agree without any fuss, and I start planning to return. At this point, the project manager loses their mind and almost begs me to stay because it means that I will not be present for the client sign-off, and that there's going to still be things that need to be fixed, and the likelihood of this local team fixing it themselves is next to zero. I leave tomorrow and testing starts the following day, and normally this would be unfathomable, but at this point, I have enough evidence that I'm basically untouchable. I am both impressed and disgusted by the audacity of this team, but they mess with the wrong person and just landed themselves in an even bigger world of pain. Oh my gosh, I love this story so much. Seriously, you mean to tell me that the original poster was brought out there just so these incompetent losers could find another scapegoat? Like, dude, are you kidding me right now? I would lose my mind if that was me. Seriously, it blows my mind when anyone tries to blame me for something I haven't done. Like, that absolutely makes me go psycho mode. So if I was in the original poster shoes, bro, I would be foaming at the mouth. There's no way I would ever put up with that. So good for you for going up the chain. Like, this is proof that you absolutely need to stand up for yourself, especially when you're dealing with bullies at work who literally are not able to do their job job because they suck at their job. So yeah, this is crazy and I'm so glad that you're getting out of there. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my friend to mind her own business after she literally starts to micromanage me in my own house? Because right now I'm honestly at my breaking point and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. To start things out, when I was 19 years old, my mother passed away, and as a result, I inherited the house and actually invited my friend, who is a 25-year-old female, to stay with me. I didn't charge her rent nor anything more than half of the gas. She helped with cleaning and was the emotional support for me while I was going through depression, and she gave me some tips since I was starting to live alone and I didn't know very well how to move in the city. I'm also autistic, so she told me more about social cues. Years have passed and I got better thanks to therapy and treatment and the support of my brother, but things started to be a bit annoying. It started ever since I liked someone for the first time last year. I got rejected and I was bitter, and I was just talking that nonsense that you might say to make your ego feel better, just like stupid stuff that really was not harmful. Well, she ended up telling me that no one would want someone like me who doesn't have a college degree or a stable job. She then pointed out all of my bad habits and insecurities, saying that this person was too good for me and I should improve to be worth it to somebody. But when she said this, I felt betrayed. She knew the situation in my country is hard, and I'm an orphan, so I didn't have that many opportunities. I also worked with what I got. After that, her comments about social cues and her tips just started to look invasive, like she was telling me rules to follow or making critiques that I didn't even ask for about my habits. My therapist said I should keep my distance and set some boundaries because she was actually infantilizing me. Now, at the beginning of all of this, she didn't want to pay the internet more than $5 because she said she wasn't even in the house for like more than half the day. And I thought it was logical at the time, but the internet got expensive and she didn't pay many times, and it was really difficult to do it on my own. Plus, we don't even share the cost of food. So I demanded her to pay half the bill with me when she got a laptop because it really was unfair. Now, she agreed, but after that, she started to critique the way that I spend money, that I spend too much money on sweets, and that's the reason why I don't have the money for the internet, or even sometimes for food. But I just told her that everything was going to be fine. Later on, I spent my money to eat something sweet and not to cook, and my brother was spending money that day, so I didn't worry. But she came asking for the internet, and I told her it was fine, but just waiting for him to make the change. It wasn't the date of the payment, so I wouldn't even be asking her for her part anyways. She then started yelling and scolding me for spending the money. And honestly, after all that crap and all the little things I had against her, I finally exploded. I yelled at her saying, "That's none of your business." And I repeated that until the end of the discussion. I was putting a limit, and while it wasn't an aggressive way, I still did it. She then demanded that it was her business because she was paying the internet, but eventually gave up on talking, and after that, she gave me the cold shoulder and doesn't want to talk to me anymore. She gives me judgmental looks while being in the house, and I hate it. I feel like I'm not welcome in my own house, but a part of me also feels guilty. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, first of all, no, you are not the jerk because holy crap, you guys are not married. This is not a relationship. She is a roommate who is living rent-free, bro. Like, what are you doing? If she really doesn't like the setup that she's got and still feels the need to be like, oh yeah, this is what you're doing wrong with your life. You're fat and you're missing all these things. Like, you need to change. Like, that would be the biggest indication for me that, yeah, I'm absolutely gonna find a new roommate and you've gotta go. Because I'm not gonna live like that. And seriously, I don't think you should either. You should not be forced to sit there and be talked to like that, especially from someone who literally has no idea what you're going through. Like, you just lost your mother and you were bringing in a friend to try and help you out, and here they are just literally micromanaging your life. Like, this sucks. I would hate this so much if I was in your shoes. Because in my opinion, friends absolutely don't get to control each other's finances. And the fact that she's acting like that, in my opinion, is more than enough reason to kick her to the curb and find someone else. Because her behavior is absolutely atrocious. My entitled neighbor yells at me all the time simply because I don't return his kid's soccer ball that he keeps kicking over the fence. Things got so bad that my neighbor literally said he would call the cops over this, despite the fact that this happens on a daily basis. Here's how it all went down. So I rent a small house with a fenced-in backyard, and I work from home, so I'm usually around during the day. For the past few months, though, it feels like I've been living next to a one-kid soccer academy run by pure chaos. My neighbor's kid, who's around 10 years old, constantly kicks his soccer ball over my fence. fence. And we're talking multiple times a day. At first, I didn't care because kids play and accidents happen. I would just toss it back and that would be the end of it. But then it started happening every single day, sometimes before 8 o'clock in the morning and sometimes while I'm on work calls. Once the ball even hit my patio chair while I was standing outside. So I just stopped throwing it back immediately. I figured maybe if it took a while, the kid would learn to control his kicks. But apparently this was the wrong move. Now, every time it happens, the dad comes to my door like clockwork, knocking on my door like a debt collector, demanding that I throw the ball back. He doesn't give me a hello or an apology. He just gives me this attitude, like it's my fault that his kid can't aim. But last weekend, it escalated. I was outside gardening when the ball came flying over again and smacked into one of my plants. I didn't throw it back right away, and a few minutes later, the dad storms over yelling over the fence. He starts to scream, "You can't keep my kid's property, that's stealing." But I simply told him, then keep your kid's property out of my yard. When I said this man turned red, full on furious. He started ranting about how I'm a terrible neighbor and that I'm unfriendly to children. He even said he was going to call the police over a $10 soccer ball. But I said to him, go right ahead. I'll show them the 5 other times this week your kid's ball hit my yard. And after that, he stomped off muttering something about respect. So now I have 2 soccer balls sitting in my shed, and if one more flies over, my dog's absolutely getting a new chew toy. Okay, I gotta be honest, this is one of those scenarios where, yeah, this guy absolutely had it coming. It's one thing for it to happen every now and then and for the parents to be like, I'm so sorry, my son keeps doing that. But it's an entirely different situation for them to be like, oh, give me the ball back right now, where they are literally treating you like you're the problem and not the stupid kid who keeps kicking it over the fence. So in my opinion, I think the original poster absolutely did the right thing. I think their neighbor is the hostile one and there is no reason to be acting like that, because this behavior absolutely does not deserve to be rewarded. An entitled gym member breaks my rules at my gym, stating that you cannot record your workouts inside our facility. But once I told him that he needs to stop, this guy literally gets up in my face and asks me what I'm gonna do about it, putting me in a situation that honestly was incredibly awkward, especially since I plan on talking to his wife the next morning. Here's what happened. So yesterday afternoon, after I finished my final training session at a gym I work for, a gym member approached me saying that another gym member was standing near another one with what looked like their phone pointed at them. I was then shown the two and I walked over. The guy lifting was making the weirdest grunts as he lifted, and he really sounded like a gorilla. I looked at the guy who was holding the phone, and I asked him to stop recording when I saw the screen was recording. The guy jumps like I startled him, and he stops recording, but the lifting guy finishes his reps and says, "Did you get all that?" He then drops the weight and sees me standing where his friend was, and says, "Do you mind? We're trying to record a fitness video." I then say to him, "I actually do mind. Do you remember the first paragraph in your gym membership that you signed upon joining?" Now, for reference, the first paragraph states that all signed members will follow the gym rules, and then it lists all the rules, including no recording of any kind of the workouts is permitted. Well, the guy, who's like the same height as my brother at 6'5", storms over to me and says, "I am 6 inches taller than you. You will not tell me what to do." I then told him as I used my walkie-talkie behind my back, pressing a coded message, "Look, you are the same height as my brother, so you don't intimidate me at all. And as the lead fitness trainer, I am here to remind you of the rules of the gym that you just violated." The guy says that he didn't violate anything, and his friend shows the video footage of him lifting. The guy then says to me, "Trainer or not, what are you gonna do?" My boss then shows up and tells the guy to wipe down the equipment, gather his stuff out of the locker room, and then leave. Well, the guy begrudgingly does as he's asked, and then eventually does leave the gym. My boss then watches as he and his friend go to the locker room, and then as they leave the building. Luckily, the guy's wife takes my morning cycling class, so I plan to talk to her today about her husband's behavior, because that kind of crap is absolutely not gonna fly with me. Oh man, this guy's definitely in trouble. Yeah, he might be taller than you, and he might be like, "Oh, what are you gonna do about it?" Sure, and you might not be able to do anything besides kick him out, but you better believe that wife is gonna be very pissed off at him. So yeah, this is a fantastic way of getting revenge, because this guy's definitely gonna regret this, and I kinda wish I could be a fly on the wall for that, because I'm willing to bet he's probably gonna get chewed out beyond belief. My ex's psycho mom quite literally is scamming the government just to get income by claiming that her kids all have mental health issues. So I decided to get some revenge by canceling some concert tickets that I bought them as a gift like 7 months ago, putting them in a situation where they were horribly embarrassed after driving 3 hours to get to a concert that they were eventually turned away from. Here's what happened. When I was 18, I was dating this girl who was nice, sweet, and very innocent, and I didn't know any better. Now, to give you a picture of who she was, think homeschool with a Christian education foundation, graduation, in all of her classes, and she was adopted. She came from a family where her dad had a construction company and her mom was a stay-at-home wife. Well, her dad was hurt at work and actually ended up receiving disability for life due to his arm being caught in a garage door. Because of this, the family was set back. Then, all of a sudden, the kids were being diagnosed left and right during their teenage years with some sort of disability, with the mother doing the talking and being friends with a primary care physician. It was to the point where they all had some sort of mental health issue, and they were put on Social Security income, paid in full to my ex's mother, of course. My ex was even put on this because she was coerced into faking dyslexia, and yeah, it really is as crazy as that sounds. So, while her mother is receiving her checks as an adult, she decided to take over as all of the kids' primary caregiver. She would collect money at a wage of about $16 an hour for each child, and with 4 of them in total, she would earn about $64 an hour. And yeah, my ex even confirmed this to me by showing me a picture of the pay statement, knowing that this was completely wrong. Meanwhile, the mom is literally not spending a moment of her time with them and living her own luxury lifestyle. I had been dating one daughter who had nothing wrong mentally and even admitted to helping her mom manipulate the system. So, trying to do something nice for her parents, I purchased them tickets for Christmas online to see Journey, her mom's favorite band. My ex then started wanting to move in with me after a year and a half of dating, and I said yes to her. But when she explained this to her mom, the mom literally lost it, saying that she was financially ruining the family by leaving the family home, and that the payments would cease if she did leave. Her mom then started blaming me, blaming my faith because it was a different denomination than her faith, and saying that I was only interested in my ex's payments, which, if I'm being honest, I was just interested in ending it completely because I literally made enough and she was very capable of working any job. In fact, her father was even threatening to physically harm me at the time. My ex was being torn in two and I wasn't going to force her to pick me over her family, so she broke up with me. I was very unhappy at the time. I was trying to move forward in life and I actually got accepted into a nicer apartment, but there was only one problem. I was about $300 short of meeting the security deposit requirement. But it's here that I had a brilliant revelation. I swiftly logged into my Ticketmaster account and I found that the tickets I had paid for were still there, and the concert was in 2 weeks. I scanned over the screen and I found the sell option, and you better believe that I sold those tickets and immediately got that apartment locked down. And mind you, this was 7 months after giving them the tickets. 2 weeks later, my phone blows up from my ex's whole family, telling me what a piece of garbage I am. But it's here that I just sat back and looked because a sick grin came over my face. My ex even reached out to me saying that I made her parents so mad. They drove for about 3 hours just to be turned right back around at the gate. They tried to find someone scalping or reselling concert tickets, but the show was completely sold out, and they literally had no luck. So what's the moral of the story, you might be wondering? Don't be a piece of crap to others, or you may receive the same in return. Because when I look back on this, I do not regret doing this for a single second. Man, this is some tasty revenge. Seriously, this is like the smallest amount these people deserve. Like, seriously, this is some crazy crap in my opinion. The mom literally forced their kids to be like, yes, I have a mental disorder. Please give my mom money so she can live the life that she wants to live. Meanwhile, the kids are miserable and none of them are getting the money, and they're basically being held hostage by their mom just so she can make a pretty penny. So for me, this is like the smallest amount of karma they definitely deserve, because the way they're treating their kids is literally insane, and there's no good excuse for that. My entitled neighbor joins the homeowners association and literally starts giving out violations left and right. So I decided to maliciously comply by doing the exact same thing, putting him and the rest of my neighborhood on notice as I started reporting everybody for literally everything that I saw, forcing them to be a little bit more reasonable in the rules they enforce. Here's what happened. To start things out, I live in a townhouse community outside of a city in Idaho. We have a homeowners association, but it's usually pretty hands-off. Like, they deal with landscaping the common areas, and that's about it. 3 months ago, this guy, who we will call Marcus for the sake of the story, moved in 2 doors down and immediately joined the homeowners association board. He didn't even wait to see how things worked, he just straight up went in. Well, ever since this, he's been sending violation notices for everything. My neighbor got one because her doormat was burgundy instead of brown or black, and I don't even know if that was a rule. And another guy got cited because his car was parked 3 inches over his driveway line into the guest spot. Well, 2 weeks ago, I got a notice. My son left his skateboard on our front porch, and apparently recreational equipment must be stored out of sight, and it was there for maybe 4 hours. In fact, he had just gotten home from school. I asked Marcus if he could just maybe knock on doors for small stuff before sending official notices, but he literally said to me, rules are rules. If I make exceptions, then where does it end? So I said to myself, okay, fine. I then read the entire homeowners association covenant, all 47 pages that nobody's looked at since 2008, and it turns out there's rules that nobody follows. Stuff like no security cameras visible from the street, which by the way, Marcus has a Ring doorbell, no no decorative flags except for the United States flag on specific holidays, and there's at least 8 houses with those seasonal garden flags. The garbage bins must be stored in the garage, not visible from the street, despite the fact that everybody keeps them on the side of their house, and no vehicles with commercial signage can park overnight. And guess what? There's a plumber 3 houses down that has his company van. So I started filing reports. Every single violation that I saw. I spent like 2 hours walking around with my phone taking pictures and filling out the online forms, and I submitted maybe 30 violations in 1 week. The Homeowners Association president called me, and she's this retired lady who I will call Joanne for the sake of the story, who's been doing this volunteer gig for like 15 years. And trust me, she sounded exhausted. And it was here that she had asked me what I was doing. And that's when I said I was just making sure all violations get reported equally. I mean, rules are rules, right? She then told me that they've got to now send all of these notices because they're officially filed. And it's a mess because half the board members are getting cited, including Marcus, and people are pissed. Marcus then came to my door yesterday. He didn't yell or anything like that, but he just looked tired and asked if we could find some kind of reasonable middle ground going forward. And I just looked at him and I said, okay, sure, that sounds good. But now Joanne keeps giving me these looks like I made her life harder. And honestly, I do feel kind of bad about that part because in the long run, she didn't do anything wrong. Okay, as someone who's dealt with homeowners associations, I love this so much. It always seems like the worst kind of people want to be the president of these things. And that's so annoying because literally you're just trying to live your life, dude. But here we have Marcus literally trying to ruin it. Like, I can't stand people who act like this. So the fact that you played their game and they didn't like it, in my opinion, is hilarious. They saw very quickly how annoying this is and how quickly this can get turned against you, like almost overnight. So seriously, good for you for getting back at these people. This is really a satisfying one because I don't think I've ever had a positive interaction with a homeowners association, and the fact that you turned this against them is just really great. My entitled friend demands that I have a mole on my face surgically removed if I want to be a bridesmaid in her wedding. And now I'm completely torn, and I seriously don't know what to do. So I'm posting this because I'm going back and forth on this issue, and I honestly overall feel very conflicted. My friend by the name of Zoe, that's not her real name, is getting married, and I'm set to be a bridesmaid in her wedding, which is early next year. I'm a 24-year-old female and she's a 25-year-old female. I am excited for the wedding and I'm doing everything I can to help her out with planning and setting things up. Recently, Zoe asked me out for coffee away from the other bridesmaids as she said that she wanted to talk to me about something privately. So I agreed and I asked her if there was something wrong. She said it was nothing huge and that she just wanted to talk to me. So I met up with Zoe the other day just like she asked me to, and it was right there that she said something I honestly never thought anyone would say to me. She said, "I want you to get that mole on your face removed before my wedding." Now, for some context, I have a mole on my right cheek, and it's kind of near my nose. It's not huge, but it's definitely noticeable. Zoe explained that she wanted everyone to look really good in the wedding photos, as well as on the wedding day, which I really do think is understandable overall. She then said, "The mole on your face is gonna be a distraction. It's just not gonna look good in any of the photos." She then said that she would pay for the surgery out of pocket, as she could afford to do that, and all I would have to do is go in and get it removed. I then told her that I really would need some time to think about it. She then said to me, "I understand, but just so you know, this will be a mandatory procedure if you want to be one of my bridesmaids." And after that, I just said that I would get back to her. Now, I'm really conflicted over all of this because I have had times where I've been insecure about my mole, and Zoe wasn't lying when she said that it distracts from my face. So if she was asking me to remove it, it may be better in the long run. And as a plus, she's going to be paying for all of it. However, I don't really know if I want such a procedure done on my face, which is why I'm thinking about not going through with it. But on the other hand, Zoe is my friend, and more importantly, she's the bride, and I want her to have the best day ever, which is why I think I may be the jerk if I didn't get this done. And just to clear a few things up, I'm not completely insecure about my mole, at least not so much anymore. I used to cover it up with foundation and heavy concealer and all of that, and now I feel more comfortable wearing less makeup and not covering it. It doesn't mean that I 100% love it, but I'm slowly starting to embrace it. I haven't really mentioned anything about my insecurity to Zoe, except maybe once or twice in the past. What this comes down to is that I don't know if I would actually want a procedure like that done, but I'm conflicted because maybe going through with it would make me look better in some kind of way. Zoe also said that she wanted me to get it removed for the ceremony and not just for the pictures, because she doesn't want me to look bad to the other guests. So honestly, am I the jerk jerk in this situation if I don't go through with this? What should I do? I'm sorry, I'm just gonna say it out loud. I think your friend Zoe is a complete jerk. Who in their right mind would go up to their friend and be like, yeah, that mole on your face, we're gonna need to have that removed if you want to be a bridesmaid in my wedding. Like, what are you talking about? That is not a friend in my opinion. If she really cared about you, she would be saying, yes, come as you are and show up. But instead, it seems like she's letting out some very serious feelings she has about that mole on your face, and she's clearly saying, yeah, I've never liked it, and now that you're gonna be one of my bridesmaids, now I can finally get it removed for you. Like, what is going on right now? Look, if you want to get the mole removed, go for it. If that's your decision, then go ahead and get it done. But I would not let some shady friend who clearly has had negative things to say about your face in the past convince you that just because you have a mole on your face, you're somehow unattractive and unappealing. That is so disgusting to say to somebody, and honestly, there's no good excuse for that. And also, why is she not like hiring a photographer to just Photoshop the mole out of the pictures if it really bothers her that much? And that would not even cost that much money. That would be so easy to do. Like, seriously, think about it for a second. Any friend who's saying, oh, you can't be in my wedding unless you have cosmetic surgery, that person is not actually a friend. And it's seriously insane that you're even considering going through with this. So no, you're not the jerk if you don't want to go through with it. Just because you have a mole on your face doesn't mean that you're a distraction. And I'm pretty sure your face is just fine with or without a mole. Any skin marks, acne scars, moles, or freckles, none of that means that you're a distraction or somehow unattractive. And the fact that your friend would try to force you to have surgery just to be a bridesmaid in her wedding is honestly insane, and you definitely do not deserve that in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk podcast subreddit. Check the links in the description if you'd like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for demanding that my bully gets a better punishment after he treated me and my friends like absolute garbage? Here's what happened. So before I go any further, I just want to say that every name is fake here, so no confidential information is being shared. Anyways, this started when I was in elementary school with my friend by the name of Bill. Bill is not his real name. We were like brothers, but first I've got to go a little bit further back in the past, when I was around 8 or 9 years old, when I had this friend by the name of Sam. Sam is also not their real name. Sam used to be my best friend until he became friends with Brad. Brad bullied me like almost every day, and Sam still wanted to be friends with him. We had our ups and downs, but we remained friends, but not as close as before. Then I found a new group of friends, but only 2 are really important, namely Bill and Andrew. One day during a cold winter, our school organized an activity where you could have a bunch of activities like tug of war, parkour, and all this other stuff, and it was amazing, all the way until it wasn't. You see, I was ready to get back to class until I saw something unexpected. Bill was getting bullied by a group of kids, including Brad, so I went to see what was going on. They were arguing about a soccer game, and someone was bothering Bill's teammate, and he got mad and it got physical. Someone strangled Bill because he tackled someone, which is absurd. They were pushing him and insulting him, and I was concerned for my friends. So I went to talk to him, and one of the kids said, who are you? Mind your own business. I said to them, I'm his friend. What's going on here? Why are you surrounding him? And then I spotted Brad. But I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I just kept asking them what was going on. That's when the same kid said, oh, he has friends? That's funny. So I was like, yeah, I'm right here, idiot. When they told me it's not my business, the bell eventually rang. So I thought it was the end of it until Brad started laughing with his friends, and then something just snapped. I turned around and I started pushing him while saying, you think that's funny? And I said this over and over again while pushing him. His friends were holding me back while I was trying to punch him, and I would have done it too if the teacher didn't intervene. They said that Brad and I have to go to the office to sort this out, but he said that he didn't have to go because it was okay, but I shut him down. When we arrived at the office, Brad, myself, and a few other witnesses were there too, and it was also Andrew, my best friend, the supervisor, all talking about what happened. But Brad wouldn't stop lying. And then Bill came in, and it was an immediate checkmate. It was 3 against 1. We've already won. So when we explained, it was done. Bill thanked me and was super grateful, and I was happy too that I stood up to him. Fast forward a few days, and we found out his punishment was no soccer for a few weeks, and we were furious. We went to the supervisor and told them that they need a better punishment because this guy straight up strangled him, and that he at least deserves to be suspended for at least a day. But he said no. So we told the director to give him him a better punishment, and they said no as well. He couldn't do anything about it, so we just ignored them. After all of this, I went to tell my dad, and my dad agreed with me, but not my mom. She said I put myself in danger, and I told her I was just protecting my friends, but she didn't care and told me I was careless and reckless. So I was sad and mad, and I told my dad about it, and he told me she was just being very protective of me. So I calmed down and I understood. So am I the jerk for demanding that my bully gets a better punishment? What should I do? I don't think you're a jerk at all. It sounds like you stood up for your friends when they couldn't stand up for themselves, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I don't think you were really in danger. I think the fact that you stepped in and told them, hey, cut it out, is the reason why this didn't escalate any further. So no, you're not the jerk in this situation. I completely understand where your mom is coming from, and obviously you need to be more careful and maybe stay away from that guy. But with all things considered, I think it was a really good thing to stand up for your friends and help them out when they were obviously in a time of need. My fiance cheated on me last year after we've been together for nearly 10 years. And now that we're about 2 months out from getting married, I'm so torn up on the inside and I now seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So as the title states, my long-term partner of nearly 10 years and current fiance admitted that while he was traveling in South America last year, he cheated on me. He told me unprompted as soon as we woke up yesterday morning, and I still have not processed how I feel. It was completely out of the blue and unexpected. As far as I know, he had never been unfaithful, and I have no idea how to react. We've been engaged for nearly 6 months, and we are supposed to get married in January. Now, before you ask why are we getting married in January, well, my mother has stage 4 cancer, and I want her to see me get married before she passes. He said he didn't feel guilty for cheating, as the quality time he spent with this other person, if you know what I mean, was really bad, and he didn't tell me as he was planning on breaking up with me, but then changed his mind when he got back home. I'm so twisted and confused on what to feel. He said he told me because it was something I thought I needed to know all before we got married. He told me I could have a free pass to get back at him, something that I would never want to do as I love him deeply and only want him. As for why he was in South America without me, he was laid off and went with his best friend who was supposed to be his best man at the wedding, and I couldn't take the time off from my job at the time, and I knew he had always wanted to go, so I thought that it was a good idea, but clearly I was naive. I've always assumed that these types of scenarios were made up or happened to other people, and I now just can't fathom how I find myself in this scenario. I don't want to break up with him if there is any hope. I love him deeply, and I would like to believe that people can overcome their mistakes, but I have zero idea of what to do. I'm looking for a relationship therapist, of course, but I don't have the words for even coexisting in the same flat at the moment. What should I do? Honestly, there are like so many red flags here. First and foremost, it's the fact that he cheated on you. He literally went to another country and cheated on you and then didn't tell you, all under the assumption that it wasn't what he wanted. And then he tries to offer you a free pass to do whatever you want with another guy. Like, I'm sorry, that's really weird in my opinion. And that's really sketchy as well. It just really seems like he wants to try and get even in the best way possible, but like, who would want to do that in the first place? I can't imagine having a free pass after my partner cheats on me. Like, that would be awful. And it's also especially devastating because I'm willing to bet that he knew that your mom has cancer. He knows the situation she's in, and you guys were planning on getting married in January so that she could actually be there and see you get married. And then he goes around and does this. Like, what in the world is going on? So honestly, I don't blame you for feeling hurt. This is such a massive betrayal of trust. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. An entitled Kevin decides to freak out at a brewery, demanding food that they don't have, despite the fact that he could easily get his food at their sister restaurant about 2 miles away. And I've never been more blown away by somebody's idiotic entitlement in my life. Here's what happened. So my girlfriend and I are at one of our favorite breweries, having a laid-back drink on a Sunday in their outside area while eating a pizza from their outside area pizza spot. This pizza spot is a special side spot with their own little oven for their larger restaurant about 2 miles away, which is their brick and mortar restaurant and just collaborates with the brewery itself. And it's right about here that the Kevin of this story comes into play. Kevin sternly walks out and asks the 2 staff workers, who are young and respectful but still don't take garbage from anyone, if his food is finally ready. We're only sitting a few feet away, so we have a front row view of everything that's going on. The staff says that they currently don't have any orders pending, and he smugly shows his phone with his Toast tab order. The worker tells Kevin that that's their main restaurant up the street and that he'll have to pick it up there. But Kevin Kevin is outraged and says that they should just make it because they are the same company. So the staff tells him that's not how it works. He then proceeds to ask to speak to the manager, and they said to call the restaurant where he placed his order because that's where their manager is at. Kevin tells the staff member to cancel the order, and the staff tells him they can't do anything about his order because it didn't go to them, and tells him that he has to call the restaurant. He then begs them to just make the order, but the staff member tells him that half of his order is salads, and with the other items they don't even have it to make that as they only make pizzas at this location. This Kevin is still outraged. By this time he very well could have just gone to the restaurant and picked up the food, but instead he just stands there staring, seeing if that will make any kind of difference, but the staff straight up ignores him. He eventually yells out, "Screw this," and runs back to the inside of the brewery. Fast forward to 10 minutes later, and I see him getting into his car and screeches his tires in the direction of the restaurant. He comes back with an armful of food, and you can tell he's extra upset because he lost his Rockstar parking spot and had to park at least a few blocks away. And this truly was the perfect way to top off a Sunday. Wow, that guy was really weird. He really was like, please just make it here. It's like, dude, we only make pizza at this place. Like, what do you want? This guy had like salads and literally anything besides pizza. And he's like, come on, just do it. Make it for me. Like, no, that's not how it works, man. Just like get a life and go over to the other restaurant. I really can't stand people who act like this. It's obnoxious. It really does like dampen the mood because like here you are if you're the original poster and you're trying to enjoy some food on a Sunday. And then this weirdo comes around and he's like, please make my food. I know it's not pizza, but come on, just make it anyways. Like these people are not magical. They can't just pull food out of nowhere. So yeah, that Kevin was being really weird. And honestly, I just can't stand when people act that way. A passive-aggressive Karen at my church thinks the world revolves around her stupid son. And after my church group had to cancel an activity for 1 week, this lady loses her mind, letting all of us know how awful we truly are for canceling a volunteer activity. And I'm so sick of this lady, and I truly want to give her a piece of my mind. Here's what happened. So my awesome husband spends a few hours every other week leading a youth group for boys ages 8 to 12 years old with a couple of other male adults. He does an amazing job. He does these fun activities for them, spending hours Googling ideas and planning things out. He's also one of the leaders who stuck around long term and got to know each one of the boys. He even uses some of our own funds for these activities, which is totally fine. I love that he volunteers some of his time to the kids that need it. Now, the mother of one of these kids, we'll call her Miss Passive Aggressive because she is incredibly passive aggressive and incredibly rude in the group chat the leaders have with the parents, but she's also very active in our local church and she acts very holier than thou. And trust me when I say this, it is very obnoxious to deal with. Anyways, my husband texted the group chat a couple of weeks ago, letting the parents know the activity is canceled this week because we're going to be out of town, and the only other leader who does anything is also going to be out of town. The other two are so unreliable, and they said that they wouldn't even be showing up either. So the activity's canceled. Not a big deal, right? And it's the first time this year that this has happened, with the exception of maybe the holidays. Well, Miss Passive Aggressive absolutely flipped her lid, questioning why they were canceling and how it was so inconvenient for her and her precious little baby boy. She texted each leader individually with her complaints, which I thought was wildly inappropriate. My husband just told her to take it up with a youth organization who oversees everything. But me being the petty person that I am, I really want to give her a piece of my mind. My husband is donating lots of time and a bit of money, even to make sure that your son has fun, and you're whining due to calling off one activity? Like, lady, please. It's such a shame that she can't be grateful, even if just for a little bit. Yeah, that sounds really obnoxious. Like, think about it. You're volunteering your time for a local church. You're doing all these activities on your own dime. You're spending all this time and effort just to make these activities happen. And then this stupid Miss Passive Aggressive Karen comes around and says, what, you're canceling? How dare the volunteer army be unavailable for their volunteer work? My little kid's gonna be missing out. Like, what are you talking about? Is this really a make or break situation for you and your kid? I can't imagine taking 1 week off of some kind of activity is somehow gonna be like a make or break moment in anybody's life. Plans change all the time in life, and this is literally just one of those examples. So with all things considered, I really don't blame you for getting upset. The way that lady was acting was really obnoxious, and there was no reason for her to complain and give out all these complaints, all because they had to cancel for literally 1 week. I was nearly incorrectly billed for $50,000 just for getting a medical procedure done, but when I tried to call them up to get more explanation as to why this was billed incorrectly, they refused to talk to me without an attorney present, so I decided decided to maliciously comply, and I put them in their place in the best way possible. Here's what happened. So I was in a very bad car accident in 2021. I ended up with a 5-day hospital stay and had to have months of physical therapy and follow-up care with a number of doctors. Most of the time, getting records, setting appointments, getting pre-authorizations, or anything related to my care was simple and didn't really involve much, and it could almost always be authorized by my name and my birth date. I called a provider who had billed my insurance incorrectly, so they wouldn't pay for it, and I was getting stuck with the bill. And the call went something like this. The company said, "Hello, please be advised this call may be recorded for training and quality purposes. How can I help you today?" I told them that I recently got care at your location, but there was some incorrect billing, and now I'm being billed and not the insurance company. The company then said, "Can I please have your name and date of birth?" which I happily provided. Then they said to me that they are unable to speak with me about this matter. At this point, I was completely blown away. So I said to them, "Wait a second, why can't you talk to me? What's going on?" The company then said, "I am only authorized to talk to an attorney about this matter." So it's right about now that I decided to maliciously comply. I said to them, "What, are you kidding? Okay, in that case, I'm representing myself for all legal matters. Now please discuss this matter directly with me." The person on the other line went silent for about 4 seconds. They then said to me, "1 moment, sir." I get put on hold for about 3 minutes, and when they come back, we get straight to discussing my issue, and we end up getting it resolved fairly quickly. Now, I don't think that they had run into that before, so they had to figure out if that loophole counted, and it does and always should. I mean, the fact that they tried to lie to me and say that I had to have an attorney just to talk to him was honestly so disturbing. Yeah, that's honestly insane to me. You know it's a big mess up when they skip the patient and they're like, "Yeah, I'm gonna have to talk to one of your attorneys." It's like, what are you talking about? The original poster actually ended up giving some more information. They said it was a bill that was charging them over $50,000, but thankfully the insurance ended up paying somewhere around $500. And I mean, that is a massive mess up. That is such a big mistake that it's honestly just unacceptable. So good for you for standing up for yourself. These people were completely incompetent, and the fact that they tried to skate around this and try and act like, "Oh, I can't talk to you without a lawyer," that in my opinion shows they are really sketchy, and you probably don't want to do business with them anytime soon. My entitled mother tries to force an intervention between me and my sister, whom I have gone no contact with, and I've never been more flabbergasted and freaked out in my life by my mother's behavior towards me. And at this point, I'm wondering if I'm the jerk for choosing to go no contact with basically my entire family. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened on Friday, and I'm so beyond upset right now, and I've gone completely no contact for the immediate future with my mom. Also, before we get started, all names are fake in this story. My sister Jane and I have no relationship. She's my sister by blood only. I'll try to be as unbiased as possible here, but she did some pretty awful things when our father passed away. Things like withholding information about his estate, attempting to sell his home and split the profits with his fiancée against my knowledge, not actually being there physically when he passed away in hospice care, etc. Afterwards, she would continuously gaslight me to the point where I went no contact with her back in 2018, and my life has been so much better without her in it. My mom by the name of Brenda is not a fan of this. She was divorced from my father, and even though I loved him so much, I have to admit that he wasn't the greatest parent in some aspects. My sister and I not having a great relationship is mostly in part his fault. Brenda doesn't like that her 2 only children have a non-existent relationship and is constantly trying to fix it. After being in therapy, I've started learning how to put up and enforce boundaries. I don't like it when my mom attempts to fix our relationship, and I gently call her out on it each time. For example, a few weeks ago, she mentioned how she wasn't going to name me or Jane as the executor until we get our stuff figured out. So I calmly told her that I didn't think that was appropriate to say or do, and that I didn't like how she isn't taking into account my feelings and why I chose to go no contact with Jane. My wife and I flew in to go visit Brenda this past Friday. We recently had a son a year ago, so we wanted to visit his grandma. We walked in and we were met with half the family standing there, including Jane, who was sitting down, claiming that they were doing an intervention. And I've honestly never been more blown away by my family's entitlement in my life. Now, when they said they wanted to do an intervention, it was going to be all about my relationship with Jane. And honestly, I was speechless. I looked at my wife, who was just as flabbergasted as I was. I said, "I'm not doing an intervention, and this is enormously inappropriate." My mom then went into this tirade of how I'm a grown adult, and this behavior is childish. I need to make up with my sister so we can put all this behind us. this? Well, as you can probably guess, we immediately left. My mom followed us out while asking why I couldn't do the adult thing and just talk to my sister. And at this point, my baby was crying. So we got into the car and booked a hotel. I booked a new flight for tomorrow, and I'm trying my best not to look upset for the baby. My wife says that she had nothing to do with this and would never sanction it even if she did know about it. My wife's phone and mine have been blowing up non-stop, with family accusing me of being a drama queen and hurting my mom's feelings. The only family member I didn't go no contact with is my stepdad, who sent me a simple apology text. With all these text messages, I'm starting to doubt myself. My next therapy session isn't until next Friday, and I'm honestly not sure how I feel. So am I the jerk for going no contact with my mom and extended family after they tried to force an intervention with my sister Jane? Wow, this is honestly so inappropriate. Like, this seriously is bananas. I can't imagine what Brenda was thinking when she secretly planned all of this out and said, yes, this is the right time to make this happen. Like, what is wrong with this lady? This lady essentially put this baby in the middle of an extremely emotional and potentially volatile situation. Not to mention the fact that the original poster has made their wishes very well known. They said blatantly, I don't want to talk to Jane, I don't want to deal with this, leave me alone. And if they had any sense about them, they would have listened. But doing this and going behind your back, gathering the whole family together as if this is somehow gonna fix anything, that in my opinion is just awful. And for the record, in my opinion at least, I don't think there's anything wrong with choosing not to talk to somebody who you know for a fact is going to treat you like garbage. That's not you being rude or mean or somehow like ignorant towards them. That's just you trying to protect your own well-being, because that individual, whoever that is, has proven that they do not care about you in the slightest. And based on what the original poster is saying, it really seems like Jane fits the bill. So no, you are definitely not the jerk here. Your family is absolutely insane for trying to do this to you, and they had no right to try and force you and your family in this awful situation. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled mother has been intrusive and invasive about every aspect of my life, constantly causing problems and proving once and for all that she cannot be trusted. So after years of dealing with her constantly, I've decided to finally put my foot down, and I have gone completely no contact. And I've honestly never felt better about cutting her out of my life. Here's what happened. I'm gonna start off by saying that my mom is a piece of work. Like, seriously, a massive piece of work. Where do I even begin? Well, let's start with being a teen. My mom is an alcoholic who treats her bipolar with whiskey. So generally speaking, she's doing pretty bad. When she was asked to take her meds but not the whiskey, someone was going to get slapped and then made to feel bad. But my mother, every time she would scream she was leaving my dad, she would take my sister and then proceed to tell me is that the reason she's not taking me is because I have a job. Okay, cool, thanks for that. My sister has no fault in this. She would get woken up at 2 in the morning and they would just leave. She was under 16 at the time. Would my dad call the police? Yeah, of course. But would they do anything? Of course not. Even though I think that what she's doing is pretty illegal. Then she would yell at me because I had a job and didn't go with her to be the sober driver. As a side note, I didn't have a driver's license because she had grounded me from driving at 14 years old because she was afraid that I would run away. When I turned 18 and was asked what I wanted for my birthday, I said divorce, and that was the only time she ever gave me anything I wanted. Fast forward to my parents finally being divorced, and several years down the road, I'm getting married to my high school sweetheart. She lost her ever-living mind that her and my stepdad would not be at the wedding if my dad showed up. Me, trying so hard to have a relationship with her, finally agreed. And that was my mistake, a big mistake. So now I haven't had my dad walk me down the aisle. I don't have a daddy-daughter dance to the song Butterfly Kisses, nothing. And this was all an attempt just to keep her happy. Fast forward a year and a half, and I now have my eldest daughter. Again, she threw a fit and wouldn't come to the hospital if my dad was the first one to see my daughter. So I had to appease the beast. She ended up in the room with me, telling me to quit yelling and to just carry on because it didn't hurt that bad. Which, guess what? That was news to me. But after this, we did cut off contact. But she ended up on her knees in front of our door, begging to be forgiven for whatever wrong she had done. I did end up caving, and she came in and got her claws back into my happy little family. Now, I'm gonna skip the nitty-gritty details, but I ended up losing my eldest daughter to CPS. Now, this is nothing that I actually did. I had left my ex-husband and was now living at my dad's. There were no substance issues or anything like that. She just had a severe seizure that the state deemed as as me mistreating her. And because I live with my dad, one thing led to another, and surprise, surprise, I have no kid anymore. She proceeded to tell me that it was my fault that she was taken away, that she was now mourning the loss of her granddaughter and all this other stuff. The adoptive parents let her see her whenever she wanted, and they too ultimately cut contact. 2 years later, and with my second husband, I have my second pregnancy. She actually said to me, "I can't believe you didn't take my feelings into consideration and dared to get pregnant again. I won't claim that child. They have no relation to me. I am still mourning. How could you be so evil?" So right at that moment, I decided to cut contact again. I get knocked around again, and I toss my now ex-husband out. Somehow she found out and swooped in to try and put everything back together. "Oh, I love the baby. She's so cute," and all this other garbage. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, she seems sober. Here we go again. Something normal, hopefully. But nope, didn't cut contact this time. We just ended up going low contact. We eventually started working on our relationship, and I finally thought to myself, hey, I have a mom, sweet. But I think we all know where this is eventually going to go. Husband number 3 comes around, and this is a healthy relationship. My mom is fawning over my husband, along the lines of stating that she has a son now and all this other stuff. We flew her out for Christmas one year because we were on opposite sides of the country, and guess what? She was drunk the entire time, while also accusing me of taking advantage of her and the whole nine. She went to spank my daughter because she refuses to eat what was put in front of her, so I told her to get out, and once again we went back to low contact. Then I find out what happened at my sister's husband's funeral, and boy did I go ballistic. I flat out told her, get sober or don't talk to us ever again. And this time it was full no contact. Fast forward a year and she gets a hold of my phone number and calls me up to tell me that my great aunt had passed away. She also informs me that she is now sober, so we can try and start working on a relationship again. It has been bumpy, but we have done our best to make sure that my daughter had a grandma. We agreed not to talk about my dad because she is convinced that my dad was physically awful towards her and everything else. He wasn't. I mean, the man cried the one time he was forced to spank me, just so we're on the same page and we're clear. If anything, it's vice versa. She still managed to talk about my dad every single phone call, and I'm talking every single one. Then this year, she had started heavy drinking again. Just imagine it, 24 packs a day and a gallon of Jack every 2 days. In July, she called me, screaming at me that I haven't flown her out again, screaming that I hadn't even been to see her, yelling that she would buy me and only me a plane ticket to come and see her. But why just me? She said to me, your child isn't my grandchild. I have only one. She meant my eldest daughter. Yeah, okay, buddy. I yelled back into the phone, hey, don't call me anymore. Forget that we even exist. You know, just angry adult children things. She then proceeds to get petty in the weirdest way. She started signing me up for random things, like really random things. Omaha Steaks being one of them. I now have her blocked on everything, and I'm so completely done with her. I can honestly laugh about my childhood now, but my God, therapy has made me realize it wasn't me. It was her. It was always her. Long story short, my mom was the worst entitled parent I've ever had the displeasure of knowing. I do feel a sense of calm now with her out of the whole family. In fact, my sister had cut her off, and she was low contact for a hot second until this last blowout. But regardless, I'm glad she is finally out of my life. Yeah, your mom really does not sound very healthy. Like she clearly has a problem, and she honestly really needs some help. And it's not like you didn't try everything you could to try and make this work. You really went to some extreme lengths just to try and make her feel welcome, to make it so your kid has a grandma in her life, and all this other stuff. You really went out of your way to try and make it work, but your mother literally made it impossible. And that, in my opinion, is so sad. I mean, think about all the missed opportunities and all the things that went wrong as a result of her acting this way. So much sadness could have been avoided, but honestly, that is not your fault. So good for you for taking the steps to try and find some kind of peace in your life. Your mom sounds like a piece of work, and hopefully, with all things considered, she never steps foot back into your life or your family's life ever again. An entitled client decides they want a copywritten character in the menu I'm designing for them, and after going back and forth over and over with them, while also dealing with their awful attitude and their constant desire to micromanage everything that I do, I decided to maliciously comply and put the copywritten character on their menu. And as a result, these two people ended up getting sued by the people who own the character that they put in their menu. Things got so bad that they even came to me, threatening to sue me if I didn't help with their court case. But thankfully, I had a lawyer on my side who knew exactly what to do. Here's what happened. Last year, while I was working with digital design for a friend, he asked asked me to design something for a lady friend of his who owns a bar and was thinking of beginning fresh. She wanted a simple design for her menu. It was going to be only one page only, since there isn't many appetizers anyways, and didn't have much money thanks to the pandemic, so I was willing to work pro bono. We'll call her Nicole. That's not her real name. Nicole was messaging me every sort of art she found on Pinterest, saying how cute some were, and if I could do it like some of the ones she's been showing me. Now, if you've ever worked with designers, you know they strongly dislike when you dictate their work. You are welcome to choose patterns and positioning and whatnot, but bear in mind that it's best if they don't copy someone else's artwork. Anyways, I made 3 versions exactly like she asked. It took me around 5 days to design it because she didn't like the picture that she took, or something like that. But you know what? It happens. I was okay with it. Design number 1 was too colorful. She didn't like too many colors, even though I only used 3 main colors. Design number 2 she also didn't like. But design number 3 she said, "Oh, I love it." And I was thinking, thank God, I want to be over this. She said to me, "But could you remove this table at the bottom? Also, the character you put there doesn't represent my bar that much." Now, while my degree was something out of a YouTube tutorial, I could call myself a designer, since most of my clients loved my work, and some professionals were over the moon when I showed any of my projects. I never studied for real because it wasn't my career, but I digress. Nicole's sister by the name of Natalie, also not her real name, she on the other hand read a book and was ready for the workplace. No, really, she read like 1 book about design and color theory and that was it. Well, Natalie went to Nicole and demanded to know why she wouldn't come to her in the first place. Long story short, I was in a group chat with Nicole and Natalie, being bombarded with JPEGs and many cute characters holding plates. And then on the 3rd day, it finally came around. The atrocious menu, as I like to call it. It was my 3rd design without the table at the bottom, with a children's font, similar to Comic Sans but incredibly illegal, and a brunette cartoon character holding a plate. And when I saw it, I could have sworn I've seen that girl somewhere. Nicole absolutely loved it. The only problem, apart from the rest, was that where the table was colored red on an attempt to erase it, and the girl was outlined white, so Natalie told me to fix it. Well, I decided to do a reverse image search on Google, and it told me that the same mascot girl they were trying to use was something from a big food blog from our city, some kind of XYZ Foodies group. Obviously, that's not the real name of the company. And that's where I knew the mascot from. I messaged them both asking if they really were sure they wanted to use that mascot, but they were indeed very sure. So I said, okay, very well, let's get this started. I changed my original design to match the desired one, and voila. I also changed my standard contract to register the design under Nicole's name with full responsibility, and I want to thank the internet for giving me that knowledge. The contract was signed and copied, art was delivered, and the case was closed. Well, not exactly. 3 months later, I received a letter in the mail, and I was being notified. It was faster than I expected. The original artist for the blog's mascot was suing me. It wasn't a formal lawsuit, I just don't know the term in English, but his lawyer went and told me I did something wrong. I contacted my mom's lawyer, and she was a little bit concerned. Copyright is really bad, and most lawyers were not equipped for it, because it's honestly so uncommon. Well, at least to us non-famous people. I told her about the absolute nightmare of the previous semester, and basically, to give a summary, while I did indeed design the menu, and eventually the same mascot was used for the logo, I was absolutely not responsible per my agreement. Eventually, another 3 months went by before I woke up to my cell phone absolutely losing it because of all the text messages and calls that I was receiving. Nicole and Natalie were angry. They said to me, "What in the world is going on? Why are we being sued because of your design? You need to solve this mess right now." I responded back by saying, "I'm sorry, what happened?" Nicole said, "I'm being sued. I just received a notification at my bar." I asked them if it was the design, and she said yes. She then says, "What did you do? Did you do this to me? Why would you do this?" I responded by saying, "I didn't do a thing. I just did what you and Natalie asked for." Natalie then said, "What? Why are we being sued then?" I responded by saying, "Possibly because you used the character from XYZ Foodies." Natalie then said, "Using another character on a design doesn't do this. I mean, you did tell XYZ Foodies, didn't you?" But I responded by saying, "Why would I do that? The girl goes around the city trying every new bar and restaurant. I even asked if you two were sure about using this art." Eventually, there was a meeting with their lawyer. I think this is someone who also read 1 book, maybe 2, and then became a lawyer. In attendance, including myself, was my lawyer, Natalie, Nicole, as well as the friend I was working with. The dude was saying stuff about design being the artist's responsibility and stuff like that, but my lawyer, bless her heart, pulled a copy of my single-page contract contract, stating clearly that I, the client, take full responsibility for the design and everything that comes with it. After she read that out loud, everyone was quiet. That is, until Nicole opened her mouth. Nicole said, "So how are you gonna help us?" My lawyer said, "We aren't." Their lawyer said, "We can close a deal. If you pay 50% of any legal fees incurred from our dispute with XYZ Foodies, we won't sue you." My lawyer then said, "Or we can shake hands and you leave my client alone. Because if you sue and lose, we are going to court again for emotional damage and emotional distress at work for my client. Are we clear?" Their lawyer said, "Okay, have it your way then." And with a smirk, the guy left. My lawyer, confused, just sat there organizing her two papers. And the sisters were sitting there with their arms crossed and annoyed looks on their faces. My friend looked at Nicole and said, "You do know you're in the wrong, right?" Eventually we left and I never heard from Nicole or Natalie again, except for the time I went to her bar and I saw that the sign was just Nicole's Bar with a beer company logo. But this time it was actually legal. But with all things considered and all that we went through, I can definitely say when she saw me, she was definitely not happy. Yeah, that's a really funny situation where they did not read their contract. They straight up just said, "Oh my gosh, we're gonna get this great design for our menu." And then they put a copyrighted character in their menu. You know, the same character that's owned by the organization that's gonna visit your bar. Like seriously, you gotta be really stupid to make that happen. And also, why are you not reading your contract? If they had just spent some kind of time to read it over, they would have seen that they are completely liable for everything in the menu. And honestly, that's exactly how it should be. The artist just did exactly what you requested. They literally asked you several times, "Are you sure this is what you want?" And they're trying to get a paycheck just like you are. It's not like they're making you put it in the menu. You are literally requesting it yourself. So the fact that they missed this and didn't look over their contract accurately is literally all of their fault. They have no one to blame for that except for themselves. So quite literally, this is not the original poster's fault. These people very clearly did not read their contract and they just said, "Yeah, we're gonna use that one. That one's really cute." Like you really can't use a character like that without some kind of permission. That is literally stealing and you can get in a lot of trouble. So good for the original poster for getting out of this without getting sued. This really does fall on the backs of Nicole and Natalie, and they literally have nobody else to blame except for themselves. An entitled Karen demands that I wait in line just like everybody else after I walk up and grab my mobile order at Starbucks. This entitled Karen even goes as far as trying to restrain me from leaving Starbucks, as well as physically hitting me. And I've honestly never been more blown away by somebody else's entitlement in my life. Here's what happened. So there's a Starbucks conveniently located right next to my psychologist's office. I'm a 28-year-old female, and over the past few months, I've gotten into the habit of grabbing some sugar-laden concoction all before my appointments. Now, I'm Australian, so any fellow Australians, please do not come for me. I'm perfectly aware that 400 calories worth of flavored syrups and whipped creams does not make a coffee good, but my $9 caffeinated milkshakes are a rare treat that gives me a little boost and helps me get through a rough session of self-improvement. Yesterday morning, as I traveled towards my regularly scheduled reality check, I had a rare moment of forethought and decided to save myself from the looming lunch rush and order online. I'm in luck with the timing, and 10 minutes later, I step through the door just as the barista is putting the finishing touches on my pumpkin spice cold brew. She calls my name and I happily bounce straight over. But as I reach my precious bean juice, I find an immaculately manicured hand resting gently on my forearm. And this is where the entitled Karen of this story comes into play. The woman it belongs to is probably in her mid-30s and oozes polished professionalism in her neatly pressed linen pantsuit, as well as her flawless makeup and her slicked back high pony, the elegant gold jewelry that drips from her wrist and neck, and the designer logo that gleams from her purse hints at wealth and power. The only resemblance she holds to a typical Karen is her nose, which remains pointed directly in the air, and the air of confident superiority that makes her seem to tower over everyone in the room, even though in reality, she's a few inches shorter than me. For the sake of this story, we're just gonna call her the entitled Karen. The smile she gives me seems almost genuine, and when she speaks, the tone is sweet and condescending, like she's gently correcting an ignorant child. She says to me, "That doesn't belong to you." I frown in confusion, not understanding the problem. At first, I think perhaps it's a case of mistaken identity. I glance at the cup that clearly has my name printed neatly across the top. I say to her, "Oh, I'm sorry, do we share the same name by chance? I'm pretty sure this is my drink though. What did you order?" She then says that it's not, while also giving me her real name, which is much longer and doesn't even sound remotely similar to mine. She then continues, "I ordered a venti soy mocha latte, extra hot with 2 pumps of vanilla. Now at this point, I'm still very confused. I say to her, "Oh, well, I'm sorry, but this is definitely not your drink then. Maybe ask the barista if it's taking a while, or just keep an eye out for something green." Now again, I go to grab my drink and leave, but she tightens her claws around me, and her smile starts to strain. And the things this Karen says and does next is honestly mind-blowing. She says to me, "I didn't say it was mine. I said it's not yours. I saw you. You just walked in and grabbed the first drink you saw. You can't just take it. You need to go stand in line and order and wait like everybody else here." I look at her and I say, "Oh, I see the confusion. I ordered my drink through the app earlier, so it was ready when I got here. It is mine. See, I have the email right here." I wriggle out of her grasp and I pull up the confirmation email to show her, which clearly states my order, that it has been paid for, as well as the time that it was placed, which was now about 12 minutes prior. I then give her an apologetic smile for the mix-up as I reach for my coffee once again. Her lips curl into a sneer as she forcefully slaps my hand away. She says to me, "No, you do not just get to waltz in here and take that. I don't care if it is your drink. That is not fair. You just got here. You can wait until the rest of us have been served." Now, the back of my hand burns a searing red, and I gape at her in pure shock, disbelieving that this complete stranger had just smacked me over this nonsense. There are at least 8 other people already standing around waiting for their drinks, and another dozen lined up ready to order. Does she really expect me to stand and wait for all these people to be served when my drink is already sitting there ready to go? When my collecting it and being on my merry way impacts no one beyond getting me out of the way? Just to simply appease some demented notion of fair? Yeah, that's not gonna happen. I make eye contact with the weary barista, whose stiff customer service smile belies the ghost of 1,000 such battles that line her face and haunt her dead eyes. With a sigh of irritation, she makes her way over to see what the commotion the two of us dare to cause her in the midst of the noon rush. I look at this entitled Karen and I say, "Ow, what in the world? Don't touch me. Are you crazy?" The employee comes over and says, "Is there a problem, ladies?" I say to her, "Yes, I was just trying to collect my drink and this crazy Karen stopped me and slapped my hand." The entitled Karen then chimes in, "She just got here. She needs to wait. It's not fair on those of us who have actually been waiting here. She can't just walk in and grab the first drink. Tell her that she needs to wait." The employee stares at me with cold eyes and says, "Miss, you need to wait in line and order your drink. You can't just go grab someone else's." But I said, "This is my drink. I already told this woman. I made a mobile order. It was ready around when I got here. I have the confirmation email right here, and my name is on the cup, see? Grande Pumpkin Spice Cold Brew. Add 1 pump of vanilla for the original poster." With a quick glance at my phone and the cup, the barista confirms my story, and now turns to the entitled Karen, looking just as baffled as I am. The employee says, "Miss, this is her drink. She paid for it." But the entitled Karen wasn't having it. She says to her, "I don't care if she paid for it. I've been standing here waiting for my drink with everybody else. She needs to wait too. She doesn't get special treatment." The employee then responds. They say, "Miss, this woman ordered her drink some time ago, and it was made according to the sequence in which our system received the order. She has not received special treatment. Some orders may take more or less time, as certain things take longer to make, but we do not prioritize anyone's order over another. You are also very welcome to order through our app in the future if you'd like to avoid waiting in the line. I apologize for the wait. As you can see, we are quite busy, but you cannot be stopping other customers from collecting their own items or using physical violence in our store under any circumstance. Please step aside and let the other customers collect their drinks. Yours should be out shortly. Otherwise, I will have to ask you to leave the store." This entitled Karen then starts to freak out. She says, "No, I want my drink, and I want her to wait until everybody else has their drink. Now go do your job and make mine. She will wait. I don't care if her drink is ready. She still has to wait." I then look at the employee and I say to them, "I'm gonna be late for my appointment if this continues. Can I just have my drink, please?" And like she slapped me hard enough to make a mark on my hand. Can you also call security on her or something like that? She's clearly mental. The employee says, "Yeah, I think that's probably best." Now, the eerie thing is that up until this point, the entitled Karen had barely raised her voice. She wasn't screaming, just sneering down at both of us from her imaginary podium and speaking with the same calmly irritated air of scolding superiority that a teacher might use on a misbehaving student. Obviously, she was in the right and the rest of us just had to learn. But as the barista placed the cup firmly into my outstretched hand, the entitled Karen's once flawless face crumpled into a hideous mask of pure, unadulterated rage. Her voice still stayed below a yell, but filled with a cold, unspeakable fury as she turned, snarling towards the poor minimum wage employee and began to unleash the icy wrath wrath of Hades. She said, "This is ridiculous. You're being ridiculous. This whole system is messed up. Clearly the corruption runs deep. Do you know who I am? I'm not someone you want to cross, little girl. Get your manager now. I did nothing wrong. I paid for my drink and I am not leaving. I'm going to sit right here and drink it as I have a legal right to do so. And you're not going to do a thing to stop me." Now, as this demon rages on, I glance towards the stoic barista. She blinks heavily, and for a moment, I fear that she may be overcome by tears. But then I realize this seasoned warrior is merely trying to refrain from rolling her eyes. She meets my eyes and suddenly gestures towards the exit. After years on the battlefront of customer service, she can handle this alone. The watching crowd parts like the Red Sea to allow me to sneak past. As I'm nearly at the door, the entitled Karen realizes that her quarry has gone astray and begins to shout after me. "Hey, where are you going? She can't just leave. Somebody stop her. I told you that she has to wait. I don't know why this is so hard for you people to understand. Somebody make that little jerk come back here and wait her turn." With a one-fingered wave, I push my way through the last few meters to the back door, just as I hear the sweet tinkle of the bell as a security guard arrives at the front door. The entitled Karen's righteous tirade turns again to how she has every right to be there, how she did nothing wrong, and that she refuses to be removed. She then says, "How dare you call security," while also demanding that she get a refund and that her drink should be free. And she also demands an apology right away. She punctuates her rant by slamming her hands against the counter as she speaks. The indignant squawks of entitlement turn to muffled chaos as the doors close behind me, and I make my way to a much-needed session of therapy with my cold brew securely in hand. I like to think that security guard dragged the entitled Karen out of the shop, literally kicking and screaming, although my instincts say that someone so poised eventually regained her dignity and was walked out in a superior huff, probably making some comment about contacting her lawyer as she went. But as I gleefully guzzled my way through the delicious pumpkin-scented atrocity, I pictured a drink extra hot with 2 pumps of vanilla, slowly getting cold on a counter several floors below, while a dreary, uncaffeinated entitled Karen raged in her fancy office somewhere, and that image alone made every sip even sweeter. That is honestly insane. I cannot believe that this Karen literally assaulted somebody in line just because they ordered ahead of time online. Like, that is seriously messed up. Now, as someone from the United States of America, this is not typically something that someone gets away with. If someone hits you or leaves a mark on your hand, especially in public with a lot of witnesses around them, then that person is most likely going to get in trouble and possibly get arrested by the police. Like, you can't just hit someone like that. It really is not okay. In fact, the original poster went on to describe why they didn't call the police. They said that they had an appointment to get to, and they didn't want to wait around for ages for the police to arrive and give a statement. They also said that they didn't get hit very hard. They said that it hurt and it stung a little bit, but it didn't bruise. So she ended up just letting it go, which is very surprising from my side of the fence. I've seen plenty of people call the police over smaller things where I come from. So if anything, good for you for being the bigger person. I'm also astonished by this Karen's behavior. Like, she really thought she could stop you from leaving the store with your order? Like, who gives her the right to try and stop customers and force them to wait in line just because they think it's fair? That's like insane levels of entitlement that I can't honestly think of anyone trying to justify. So good for you for standing your ground quite literally and not letting this weird entitled Karen boss you around. She clearly has some kind of problems going on, and hopefully you never have to deal with her ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. 2 Disney parents act like complete fools in the line for a ride they were trying to see, freaking out that they couldn't sit as a family, despite the fact that they sat 30 minutes in the single rider lane the entire time. And as a result, everybody in that family got split up, and the Disney dad ended up screaming at the cast member the entire time. Here's what happened. So I'm currently at the happiest place on earth. Some of these rides, including some of the most popular ones, have a single rider only lines, and they are exactly what they sound like. If you don't mind getting out into a ride with people that you don't know, you can get in and out pretty quickly. No extra lightning lane or Genie Plus needed in the slightest. It is important to know that as you make your way through the single rider line, there are multiple signs that say your party will be broken up, groups will not ride together. Well, I noticed a family just a few people ahead of me. They had 3 small kids with them, the oldest being 7 years old. I thought to myself, okay, let's see what happens here. You could already tell that they were trying to game the system and avoid waiting in the regular line. Keep in mind, this line was for the most popular ride, Radiator Racers, or whatever it's called in Cars Land. Even the single rider line was over over 30 minutes long. The regular line would take 100 minutes. They got to the front, and the attendant, or should I say cast member, takes the first kid and tells her to get in line for her. The dad yells out and says, "She can't go by herself, she's only 7. The cast member spins around and says, "Feel free to go into the regular line if you want to ride together. Otherwise, your little girl goes into that line." The parents then start freaking out. The little girl does look hesitant, but she does go in. And off she goes, with mom and dad freaking out. The dad is yelling at a cast member, mom is pacing and quietly freaking out. The rest of the family gets piecemealed out, and although the mom gets to ride in the same car as her 2-year-old kid, they are in separate rows. The dad stays behind to yell at the cast member again, who just keeps repeating out loud, "Single rider line only," and continues to smoothly do his job. The dad stomps over to his seat, yells out, "This is messed up," and off they go. You could tell dad told mom to get in that lane because it was faster, and my guess is that he promised her that this would all be okay. He probably said something like, "Oh, I'm sure they won't break us up, we're a family." Yeah, well, that guy was an arrogant jerk, and I'm just glad that the Disney cast members didn't give in to his weird demands. Yeah, Disney adults are really weird in my opinion. I'm not trying to offend anybody, but out of any fandom or like obsession or some kind of interest anyone might have, some of the people I've met who take it to the most extreme level are Disney adults. And look, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with being a fan of Disney films or their products or anything like that. I mean, I'm pretty sure they own like everything at this point, but when you take this interest in this hobby and you kick it to the next level and you're going to all the rides and you're acting super entitled, that's when it goes well over the line and it honestly becomes obnoxious. So I'm right there with the original poster. I'm glad that the Disney cast members put them in their place. The way they were acting was incredibly obnoxious. They knew exactly what line they were getting into. There's no way they just got in it by accident. And I think the original poster is right as well. I can see for a fact that either the mom or the dad was like, "Yeah, we'll just get in the single lane and then they'll just accommodate us from there." Like, no, buddy, that's not how it works. And plus, there's so many signs up there that basically describe, hey, this is the single rider lane. If you're experiencing some kind of special privilege, then you are delusional and you're about to be upset. So yeah, those people were super entitled, and honestly, they got exactly what they deserved. My entitled mother always freaks out anytime there's any kind of mess. And after dealing with this for so many years, I've decided to get revenge. And I've never felt better about getting back at my mother in my life. Here's what happened. So this happened a few years ago when I was 18 years old and still living at home. My mother was and still is a raging narcissist, as well as a control freak. In a way, I can't really blame her, since she grew up practically looking after her siblings, but it's something that slowly destroyed our family life. I was diagnosed with high-level ADHD when I was 19, which explained a lot of difficulties growing up. But this is the backstory as to why my mother is terrified of me touching her stuff. You see, my mother had this hatred for things not being done her way, to the point where she would go through her friends and family's trash just to rip up mail and other stuff with names on it, because people will find your address if they look through your bins. But you know, if they're looking through my bins, they're already outside my house, so I don't think they need my address, to be honest. But she would move everything of mine. She would put it away in places it doesn't live, shove it in bags. She would also go into my room to try and tidy it away, and I would lose things as a result. Things would also get broken, and so much more. It was endless, and I was growing angry. My father is also an enabler, so he would always defend her, even when he knew that she was wrong. What really tipped the scale was a seemingly normal day. When I cook, I usually clean a little as I go along, but I do the bulk of it after I've finished eating. Every single time, without fail, as soon as my butt touched the chair and I started to eat, she'd be in the kitchen screaming about how it's so dirty and no one does anything in this house. And then there would be the smashing sound of pots and pans, as well as noises of anger. And we've all gotten used to just tuning her out mostly. When I take a shower, I always dry myself off, head up to my room, telling them that the bathroom's free but not clean, and then I would get into my new clothes, quickly blow dry my hair and moisturize my face, and head down to clean up the bathroom. And yet there would still be screaming, shouting, while also claiming that she was just a servant to everybody in the house, claiming that no one respects her house and all this other stuff. And this would happen every single time. She wouldn't even need the bathroom too, by the way. She would just enter it and then complain. This time, however, she brandished my shampoo bottle in my face and screamed about how if I didn't put things away fast enough, then she'd kick me out of the house because she was tired of cleaning up after everyone else's stuff, even though nobody asked her to do that. She would also scream about having been on her feet all day at work. Mind you, she logs books on a computer, plus she refused to retire. So after dealing with this for so long, this is is where my malicious compliance comes into play. For 4 long weeks, I put everything away, and I mean everything. Everyone else's stuff got put away or put on their placemat. I moved things around to their proper places. I put things away when she was in the middle of using it. Work stuff that she left lying around got put back into her pile of papers, with her clothes dumped outside of her room, blankets folded and stacked when she went to the toilet, spices and foods put on the top shelves. But that's not all. Bottles, jewelry, glasses, pots, pans, everything was put away. For some reason, I loved it. It seemed to scratch that itch in my brain whenever I got bursts of motivation to do it. It took me a month before she basically told me to get lost and to stop doing it. She'd lost multiple things, kept having to call out for help just to reach stuff because she's so short. My mom is 5'2", by the way. She would also sort through her papers and ask me where I moved her things. But all I ever said to her was, "Do you see how annoying it is now?" And then I would just close my bedroom door. Now, I moved everything back the next day when she was at work, and for maybe one blissful week, she stopped bothering me. But unfortunately, it didn't last long. But despite it all, I always remember what I did to my mom with a massive smile on my face. Yeah, that's a really funny way to get back at your mom. Like me personally, I can understand where she's coming from, where she wants to keep the house clean and free of clutter, and to that end, I totally get it. But for her to literally go around and be super weird about it, as well as literally cleaning everything up, even though people are in the middle of trying to clean it up themselves, that in my opinion is super toxic. Like, there's no good excuse for that, and there's really no good reason to act that way. Like, imagine that. Imagine you're in the middle of something that you're trying to work on, only to find out that your mom stepped in, moved everything around without telling you first, and then suddenly you're missing all this stuff. Like, that in my opinion is completely unfair. So when it comes to you getting back at her and maliciously complying and putting everything away all the time, I personally find that to be super hilarious. Like, seriously, she's getting a taste of her own medicine. If she doesn't like her things going missing, then she can clearly only begin to understand how you and the rest of the house must feel. So good for you for maliciously complying and essentially putting your mom in her place. You taught her a lesson very quickly, and even if she still transforms into the same person, you at least proved her wrong when it counted. My entitled brother takes a hammer and destroys my Xbox, but when I try to confront him and my parents about it, my parents yell at me and claim that my little brother would never do that. So I decided to get some revenge by exposing him for the liar that he is, and eventually leading my parents to sending him off to boarding school. And I'm so happy I was able to get back at my little brother, as well as getting him out of my life. Here's what happened. So for a bit of context, I'm 16 years old and in high school, and my brother is 12 years old in middle school. Let's call him Bill. Bill is not his real name. He has always been super spoiled with anything he wants at any time. Like if he said, "I want McDonald's," then someone had to go get him McDonald's right then and there. He was spoiled so much that he could not mentally comprehend not getting something or being told no. Well, eventually I got a job working at a fast food restaurant because my family needed the money, probably because they spoiled the crap out of my brother. But I secretly started to set aside money to buy an Xbox for myself, and eventually I did just that. Now, when my family found out I bought an Xbox, they just assumed I would let my brother play on it without permission on my account. But I flat out said no, and my brother began having a tantrum, and my parents yelled at me for it, which is really stupid. It's my Xbox, they can get lost. Well, a few days later, my brother skipped out on school and destroyed my Xbox while my parents were gone. When I get home to my room, all I see is chunks of Xbox and pieces of the game discs everywhere. I immediately confronted my brother about this with my parents, and my parents immediately took his side, and eventually started to yell at me, and my brother had the stupidest smug grin on his face, and at that point, I vowed to expose him for the jerk that he really was. So a few months later, I saved up for 2 more Xboxes, knowing well that I would need both. I hid one of the Xboxes in my closet and set one up in my room. I decided I was going to record him destroying the Xbox and then show it to my entire family. And sure enough, 2 days later, he skipped school and destroyed the console. He pretty much bit the hand that feeds him. But what he didn't know is that I caught him in 4K because I had my phone set up on a high shelf with the camera on to record him. I then confronted him and I was smiling like the Grinch. I go into his room and he says, "Something you want to say?" Then I pulled out my phone and played the recording at full volume, and I edited the clip up to when he went into my room with a hammer and destroyed it. His eyes got huge and he began screaming like a toddler. My parents overheard and came upstairs, and I showed them the recording, and the look on their faces, oh man, all they could do was just stand there in disbelief and watch it on repeat. I I eventually walk out feeling like I had won the lottery, and I pretty much had. I go into my room to clean up the mess and set up the second Xbox, and as soon as I close the door, I hear my parents yelling at him at full blast for about 20 minutes. And as they are doing this, I share the video on my family's Facebook page, and I am almost instantly bombarded with nasty messages towards my parents for spoiling him so much and for just being awful parents. It felt so good to finally get my sweet revenge on this spoiled brat. He was eventually sent off to boarding school, and my parents had to work more because it's not cheap. I also stopped helping to pay my family's bills because I just flat out said, I'm not going to pay for the stuff this stupid spoiled demon got. I only pay for the stuff that I need right now. My family also stopped giving my brother everything, and I know for a fact that he will not be a good adult when he is 18 years old. It felt so good to finally get my brother caught as well as getting him out of my life. Wow, your brother's a demon for sure. Like seriously, what was he thinking? For starters, the precedent that your parents have set up for your brother in basically giving him whatever he wants is honestly so bad. You are literally telling this kid, yeah, it's okay to act like a brat, you're gonna get whatever you want. And the parents are just enabling that left and right. It's not fair for the original poster or even for the kid that they're spoiling, because the original poster has it right. He's probably gonna grow up to be an awful adult, and that's not serving anybody or society in general. But also, how can the parents be so dense that they didn't realize that the brother destroyed the original Xbox? I mean, what, did the original poster break it himself just to blame his brother? That thing cost hundreds of dollars, and I'm sure the teenager of the house doesn't have that kind of money to just throw around whenever they want. That was really expensive, and they probably really liked the console to begin with. So it's really sad to see how deep within their own delusional thoughts they had basically fallen into in thinking that their perfect son couldn't have destroyed that Xbox, which he absolutely did, by the way. But honestly, with all things considered, your revenge was absolutely perfect. You caught him right in the act. You showed him exactly why you should not be messed with, and you got it all on recording to boot. And that, in my opinion, is the best way to go about doing this. Clearly, words are not going to work for your parents, so you really do need some concrete proof just to prove them wrong. So with all things considered, I don't think you're the jerk in this situation, and I think that your little brother absolutely had this coming. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my husband to not go on a family trip as we are in the middle of moving into our new home? Here's what happened. So for a bit of background, we were waiting for our home renovation permits for nearly 2 years, and this was all delayed due to the pandemic, and we finally started to work on the place this year. I got pregnant during that time and gave birth to my son half a year ago. I was going to return to work and have my parents look after him. However, my parents are overwhelmed and they're elderly, so taking care of a toddler full-time just wasn't going to work. So I decided not to work and take care of our son myself. This November, our home will be completed with some delays, and we can finally move in. However, my mother-in-law wanted to go back home to China to see her grandparents and take a vacation with them to Hawaii in November. Since my mother-in-law is recovering from a minor surgery, my husband wanted to accompany her. I told him no because we're going to move in during that vacation time, and we can't pay for 2 homes. We borrowed a mortgage for renovation, and we are leasing a place right now. He insisted that he needs to go help his mom, and this is the last vacation he can travel with his grandparents. Now, I would be a bit more lenient if that was the reason. However, his extended family is going on the trip too, which is like 5+ people, so there would be plenty of help. I told him that he shouldn't go and that I needed him here, but he just brushed off my concerns, saying that my parents can help with the toddler while he is gone, and I can manage the renovations and moving on my own. That turned into a heated argument, and he ended the conversation by saying, "You can't stop me." And since then, he has been stonewalling me and not helping me take care of the toddler. And now I honestly just don't know what to do. Now, my husband is the type of person to not speak up about any weakness or any needs that he has. I do admit that these last 2 years, it has been the toddler's needs over his, and I myself didn't have a lot of alone time while he had time for recreation and video games, since I take on a majority of the mental load. I don't think it's out of jealousy, and I know why he wants to see his grandparents since he adores them. It is more along the lines to my belief that as a father, his wife and son should be priority. I do understand that he wants to see his grandparents, and if it was any other time, I would have said go on ahead, but I need him here. It is just really bad timing for the vacation, and he just wanted to go. And when it comes to my parents, is. Initially, they were going to take care of our toddler until he turns 3 years old, but after taking care of him for a few days straight, they realized it was taking a toll on them, so I stepped in and took over. However, I really need to work to support the mortgage, but my husband doesn't want to pay for childcare since my parents are retired and he thinks they can just do it for free. I asked him multiple times if his family can help, and each time he says no, and our conversation just ends there. And honestly, when it comes to the vacation, I did not outright say no. I informed him that the vacation period was during the move-in as well as the home completion date, and that he should prioritize that first. He just stayed silent, which means that he understood. However, it was not until his family finalized the dates that he bought tickets for the trip. He knows how important having our own home with our son is, but clearly I'm not high on his hierarchy, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Wow, your husband is being super toxic. Here you are with a newborn toddler, as well as a new house that you're going to be moving into, and during this time when you really need the support, he's planning on going off to China to visit his family with a massive group of people. Like seriously, how can he not see that this is a problem? His wife and child need his help. It's not like you're being selfish by saying, hey, we got stuff to do. This is literally reality staring you in the face. He's putting too much pressure on you and placing you in a really weird situation, and that's really unfair. That really does not set well with me personally. I know if I was in your shoes, I would be super upset. As someone who's moved around a lot growing up, I can tell you closing down on a house and moving to a new location really is not an easy process. There are a lot of moving parts, and trying to do that by yourself is insane. Yes, it can get done, but with a toddler strapped to your hip, it's only going to be more complicated. And the fact that he would really look at you and say, you can't stop me, that is such a big red flag, it's not even funny. He would prioritize having some kind of vacation over you and your child. In fact, he won't even invest in childcare on his side of things. He won't ask his family, and he won't pay for it for someone else to do it. He just says, oh, your parents can do it, even though they're literally not physically able to do it. Like, that's really not okay, that's really immature and unacceptable, and I really think you deserve a lot better than the way you're being treated. My entitled husband tries to trick me into changing my last name when we got married, and even though I discussed this with him for 6 years before we got married, he is still demanding that I take his last name despite the fact that I want to keep my maiden name, and I'm so unbelievably hurt, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So it's been 1 month since my wedding with Fred. Fred is not his real name. I'm a 28-year-old female and Fred is a 28-year-old male, and I am refusing to sign our marriage license, and now I'm honestly considering leaving him. For 6 years, I believe Fred and I were on the same page about what we wanted from one another, as well as what we want out of our future. We agreed that we didn't want children ever, and I made it clear before and during wedding planning that I wasn't changing my last name ever, and he also agreed to this. I am an only child, while Fred has 3 brothers. My last name goes away with me, while his family's last name will continue on with his 3 brothers, who are all married with children, by the way. And with this all considered, and points made on these facts, I believe there wasn't an issue because Fred agreed to it. I personally hate the tradition of taking on the husband's last name. In my personal opinion, I think it's an archaic tradition that feels more like the transfer of property to a man as opposed to a union. And even though I'm never having children, even the thought of having someone else's last name being attached to my hypothetical child's name honestly just doesn't sit right with me. On top of that, why should I have to change all my registered IDs and documentation just because I'm a woman? It's honestly not fair. So it's our wedding day, and Fred really pushed to have a ceremony in front of everyone where we would sign our marriage license together. He was first to go, and when it was my turn, he had his hand placed really weirdly on the document. I told him to move his hand, and we had an awkward, quiet battle about it, and when he finally did, I saw exactly what he was hiding. It was his job to fill out all the forms for the license, since he offered to do that for me, so I had one less thing to worry about, and he went behind my back and purposefully filled it out so I would be taking his last name. It turns out in Florida, you can put your maiden name and the name you are changing it to on the form, and that's what I saw on the license. Both names. We were at the clerk together with all of our needed identifications and documentation, and I was so stressed and exhausted. I wasn't paying attention, and you know, I trusted him, so I never thought once that in any world I would need to review what he filled out or to even review the license when he had it in hand. Now, I refused to make a scene in front of all of our friends and family or fall into the pressure that I was under, so I pretended to sign it, and the rest of the night was absolutely ruined for me. Everything I thought we agreed agreed to, and all my preferences that he knew about and thought he respected were absolutely destroyed. It was like my world was ending and what should have been the best day of my life. Fred is now a completely different person. He's all about tradition now, and how it's his right to have a wife with his last name, how it's embarrassing that his brother's wives didn't make this an issue for them, and how all his friends will give him all this garbage if I don't change my name for him. He keeps saying that it's not that big of a deal and that I'm ruining our future. On top of that, he keeps bringing up the child argument, saying stuff like, we can't both have different last names, and they should take mine. But I'm just thinking, I thought we didn't want any kids. I know it's technically the certificate that changes your last name, but to know that this is what he's wanted all along, and that he was willing to try and pull one over on me is disgusting. I feel manipulated and heartbroken, and now he's put all the pressure on me to make a decision because time is running out on filing our marriage certification, and he isn't changing his mind. I feel like I've wasted our guest time. I feel like I've wasted all of our family's money on our wedding, as well as wasted our future together because I let him fool me for 6 years, and I truly never saw this happening to me. I feel like I've wasted my life, and I'm backed into a corner with someone I don't even recognize anymore. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. That is an awful situation. I'm so sorry you're dealing with that, but this really does not sound like a good start to your marriage. It's almost like he was listening to all the things that you wanted out of your marriage, and instead of being honest with you, it seems like he just played along and pretended to care about what you wanted. That is so gross in my opinion. And you said it best yourself. He knew exactly what you wanted. He knew that you wanted to keep your last name, and yet here you are on your wedding day in front of everybody, almost signing a license that would basically change your last name. He also knows that you don't want any children, but here he is suddenly, after 6 years of knowing how you feel, talking about the future children that the two of you are gonna have. Like seriously, I would feel like I'm losing my mind as well. So I don't blame you for feeling this way, and in my opinion, this is a big red flag, because I really think that you're seeing exactly how Fred actually is. He is starting to open up in a way that you've never seen before. I would even be willing to bet that this probably feels like a complete stranger. I know if I was in this situation, I would feel that way. Here I am marrying somebody, and literally they change overnight. They're saying stuff like, oh, my brother's wives didn't make a big deal out of this. Why can't you just change your last name? Like Fred is either dense or just completely ignorant. So honestly, I don't blame you for feeling the way that you do, and I don't blame you for getting upset, because if he really loved you, he would not be acting in this way, and it's just really sketchy all around, and hopefully things get better before it gets worse. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for leaving my job at my scheduled time and leaving a task unfinished, even though I've been told multiple times that we need to comply to our scheduled labor hours? Here's what happened. So I work as a pizza delivery driver for a popular pizza chain. About a month or so ago, our district manager decided to cut back labor hours to all the stores that she takes care of in her district. This isn't a problem for the other stores, as they don't have as many employees as our store does. It was a complete detriment to us though, as we are now required to leave as soon as we can, whether that be our scheduled clock out time or sooner. When our store manager told us about this, we'll call him Jim. Jim is not his real name. One of my coworkers asked what to do if we have to leave, but we have a task that is unfinished. Jim said you still have to finish that task before you leave. Essentially, we are supposed to leave on time with all tasks completed, but most days that is entirely impossible. With being a delivery driver for this company, depending on your shift, you have to do dishes or prep dough for the next day, as well as answer phones and talking out deliveries. And there are some nights where there are large amounts of deliveries that will take up most of, if not all of your shift, and you will barely be able to do anything else. Fast forward to last night, and I was working a closing shift, which meant that I was doing the dishes. It had been a nice balance of doing that and taking out deliveries, and I did not have much time left. About 30 minutes before we closed, I had to take a delivery to a home in a very small town about 10 minutes away. This meant that I would be gone for at least 20 minutes for the round trip. That's not including the time to get out of my car with the order, waiting for the customer to answer, giving them their order, and then leaving. That varies wildly from customer to customer, but thankfully that only took a couple of minutes. I didn't get back to the store until 10 minutes before we closed. I was scheduled off 15 minutes after we closed, and I got as much done as I could in the time I had left. When it hit the time for me to leave, I put away what I had done and I clocked out. About 10 minutes later, I received a text from a phone number I didn't know. It was the manager that was on duty for that night. Let's call her Heather. Heather is not her real name. Heather, I guess, wasn't happy that I left and sent me a text message basically saying, "Next time you decide to leave, maybe you should finish your job." Attached to the text message was an image of some dishes from up front that I didn't even know were there. And it wasn't even that much. There was maybe like what, 1 to 2 loads, maybe 3 of dishes that I had missed. Fast forward and it's the next day, and I haven't responded to the text message at all. I'm going to be getting a hold of Jim today and ask for better clarification on what's the deal with our labor hour cutbacks, as well as asking for our district manager's contact information. I did what I was supposed to do, which was clock out on time, but I get an angry text message for not completing my task before I left, which by the way would have put me into overtime. I'm annoyed and I'm incredibly confused now. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Honestly, I do not think you're the jerk here. Let's look over the logistics real quick. First off, it's not that many dishes. This Heather lady's acting like you just didn't do any dishes at all. Look, you did the best you could with the time you had left. And if these people want you to clock out on time, then guess what? That's what I'm gonna do. In my opinion, I think it's incredibly unethical to try and force your employees to work off the clock just to try and complete some kind of task that they could have done on the clock. It's wrong to try and do that and incredibly illegal. If I'm clocking into work, I deserve to get paid for every second that I'm there. So for Heather to be like, wow, you didn't even complete your job, considering all the things that you need to do, that in my opinion is so disgusting. And also, if you really want a business to fail, just start cutting people's hours. That'll definitely take care of it. The fact that there's no give or take when it comes to this job is, in my opinion, completely insane. I don't know about you, but working at a pizza restaurant is probably the last place I would want to work. Not because I wouldn't enjoy it, which I honestly don't think I'm cut out for that type of work, but in my opinion, think about how busy a pizza restaurant is, especially if they send drivers out for delivery. Like, that would be a constant grind to get people's orders done and completed. And you know for a fact that people are going to call in late, people are going to give the wrong address, people are not going to show up to get their pizza, and all this other stuff. I would imagine that's a job that has a lot of nuance when it comes to what's expected of you on the job. So for the district manager to be like, okay, do all of your jobs, but in this set amount of time, that in my opinion is awful. And that is not a good sign of that work environment. So overall, no, I don't think you're the jerk. You didn't do anything wrong, and you were literally just trying to get your situation figured out. And hopefully, in the future, they're able to give you some kind of leeway when it comes to staying overtime and doing your job. An entitled sister-in-law tries to take credit for a large donation to a cancer fundraiser that we were running, and I've never been more blown away by somebody's selfish entitlement in my life. Here's what happened. So for a bit of context, my mother has a friend that has terminal cancer. She got diagnosed about a year ago or so, and it's recently went terminal. She only has a few months left, so her friends and family decided to have a fundraiser in her honor to help cover medical costs, any afterlife costs, and bucket list costs, as well as to help the family out after she passes. This lady is an amazing person. Everyone in town knows and loves her. She's a hairdresser and has been doing my mom's hair for ages. My mom has been a big part of the planning and fundraising for this event. There are a handful of this woman's friends and family taking a hand in it. However, most of them live an hour or so away, so the businesses and the people they are getting donations from are not our town and they don't know anyone. So my mom took it upon herself to call nearly every business in town, family-owned shops and restaurants, chain shops and restaurants, travel agencies, insurance agencies, big places of employment, etc., as well as donations from the general public. She even got our local Walmart to donate some money. She's gotten everything from small items to gift cards to whole baskets and massages, as well as discounts, while also getting our local airport to donate 2 30-minute airplane rides around our county. And the latest place to donate was our bowling alley. The guy who runs and owns the place is amazing. He also coaches both of our high school bowling teams. When my mom called, he said that he's going to take a bit to think about what to donate because he wants to do something other than just a free bowl or two. He ended up ordering 2 new bowling balls and is donating them along with 2 one-hour bowling parties for 10 bowlers. And that's like a $400 donation overall at least. So anyways, he told her last week when he called to confirm what he's donating to call back in a week just to check if it's in and if she can come by and pick it up. She's been posting thank you notes on Facebook for the donators and telling what they've donated to kind of give a peek at what the auction baskets will include. So she called today to ask if it's in as well as when she can come and pick it up, but she was then informed that somebody already did. And it's right about now that we realize that things were absolutely not as they seemed. Now, my mom was not made aware that someone else was picking it up. She posted about the donation on Facebook and added it in the group chat that they have for friends and family. No one outside of this private chat knew that she had not picked them up yet. She messaged them all, asking if one of them had grabbed it and forgot to tell her about it, but they all had no clue what she was talking about. We thought that maybe some jackwagon saw the post and decided to take it for themselves. I called the owner and I asked them if he knew who picked up the stuff, and he said it was Jessica. Jessica is not her real name. He said that since she was family, he thought that we had sent her. My mom texted the group chat asking if anyone knew who Jessica was, and it turns out that she is the woman's husband's sister. This sister is not in any of the group chats and has not attended any of the meetings regarding the fundraiser or the planning. The woman's daughter is in the group chat and is very active in the planning and the fundraising. She called her mom and asked if she had heard from the sister and if she had seen the bowling balls or the certificates, and her mom said that the sister brought them to her home, saying that she got this huge donation from the bowling alley. Now, none of the donations have been going to her house. We don't want to clutter up her house and cause her stress trying to plan, so the friends and family have been keeping the stuff at our houses until the time for the fundraiser. So there's no other reason for her to take them to her house other than to try and take credit for what was done. I just don't understand why she would take it upon herself to go pick up a huge donation that she didn't even take part in without telling my mother, you know, the one who got the donation, that she didn't need to go pick it up because she had covered it already. She took it straight to the woman's house without asking the group that's planning where they're storing the donations. And she didn't tell anyone that she took it. She doesn't even live in our town. She literally lives 30 minutes away. So she had to go so out of her way to pick this up. She took this to her sister-in-law's house, trying to take credit for this huge donation when she hasn't put in a lick of work to this fundraiser, and left us worried that someone just took our donation and ran off with it. And honestly, with all things considered, I am so disgusted by Jessica's entitlement. Wow, that really does seem like she was trying to take credit for something she didn't do. I thought at first she was gonna try and like steal the donation and maybe like sell it, but thankfully she just wanted to be a selfish jerk and try and show off for something she literally had no part in. Also, I hope you put some details in that group chat and explain that, yeah, Jessica did something stupid and basically exposed her for the jerk that she is. Like, listen, if you want to be involved, then be involved, but don't just swoop in and be like, wow, look at this donation I got for you. Like, that's really stupid and incredibly entitled, and also really selfish. It's like she just completely forgot the reason for this entire thing. So thankfully this wasn't stolen, and thankfully this is just the case of Jessica trying to act stupid, as well as trying to take credit for something that she had no part in. That is honestly disgusting, and hopefully the rest of this fundraiser goes off without any other problems. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled dad is constantly overstepping my boundaries, as well as making my life a living nightmare. And after decades of dealing with his intrusive behavior, I'm honestly at the end of my rope, and I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, everyone in my family makes excuses for his constant BS. They give him the benefit of the doubt, they call his actions neurotic instead of calling them problematic. My one sister is always quick to remind me of his other qualities that make him a good dad. If I dare try to express and seek some validity in feeling betrayed by how he can treat me. For 34 years, I've tolerated his egregious behavior, and I'm deciding that I have finally hit my limit. And this is how I hit my breaking point. He cut down my gorgeous hibiscus like a complete lunatic. Did he steal it? I'm honestly still trying to wrap my head around it, and I'm trying to figure out what happened and why he did it. Now, for some context, my husband and I, as well as my baby, were walking around the yard before her bedtime tonight. It was already dark, and my husband, who usually doesn't notice much in life, actually noticed that my favorite flowering bush was not there. We live in a northern state and have already gotten frost, but this sweet miracle of a hardy hibiscus was still flourishing. It was perfection. There were 5 open flowers, big beautiful candy swirled blooms, but now it was gone. The whole plant cut clean at the base. My parents had just left earlier in the afternoon from visiting for an entire 2 days. They refused to ever stay long, but this was by far the shortest visit ever, and they live nearly 5 hours away. They also refused to stay at our house, always demanding to get a hotel. So all in all, me and my baby got to actually see them for maybe a combined 3 hours, and it was mostly my mom. My dad doesn't participate in quality time, because you know what? It doesn't serve him. He stays outside on his phone the whole time or runs errands, or he just messes and modifies my garden. He usually just puts down more plants and flowers, but he's planted over tulip buds before and mowed my wild flowers not fully bloomed yet, all because he doesn't ask and he doesn't think he needs to. He just does what he wants, and if I take issue with it, he responds as if I'm a jerk who has a lot of nerve to even care about their garden in the first place. I mean, I don't tend to it all summer and really care about what comes out of the ground and how it looks like, and because he's here very briefly, maybe 5 times a year, he thinks that he deserves to call all the shots about a property that he doesn't own. And if it gives me more work instead of helps me out, well, I'd better eat glass before I mention so. And this is not the only thing he's ever done in my life. Trust me, there's a long list of all the weird things he's done. For starters, he once took my car to get a tune-up while I was sleeping without my consent. And he threw away so much necessary paperwork, as well as an unused gift card, a couple of my daughter's toys that he said were too dirty to be worth saving, but also just cleaned it out of stuff that maybe I might have wanted, like air fresheners or pens. He just thought that I should be grateful and not inquire further or act as if those items mattered in the first place. He's also thrown away everything in my fridge that was opened, or not to his standard. So if it's a brand that he doesn't like a certain brand of mayonnaise, he will just replace it all with a better product that he likes. He's also taken my dog to get groomed without her proof of rabies vaccination, while also doing it without me knowing that he was going, because my dad is only on brand if he doesn't ask my permission first. He called me up while I was at work, yelling and cussing about how I need to get my vet to call the groomer ASAP because he's too old to be dealing with this kind of garbage, and that I should have her tags updated, while also trying to be like, wow, your dog's such a pain in the neck, I don't have time for this. But you know what? I did do exactly as I was told, and I probably apologized instead of just hanging up on him. One time when I was visiting them, he decided I was drinking too much coffee, so he replaced the regular coffee grounds with decaf. One evening, I saw a decaf bag of coffee in the cereal cabinet, and I thought to myself, okay, decaf, whatever, and I went to make a pot because, you know, I'm an adult who recognizes her biology and doesn't drink caffeine after a certain time. I mean, it's as if I'm a fully grown adult and I've been on the earth for almost 30 years at this point. Well, as you can probably guess, my dad stopped me and started to laugh and told me that I couldn't have it. He just kept saying that it was special and wouldn't fess up as to why. My mom told me what he had done after he started getting agitated that I wouldn't drop it. And when I acted horrified at his actual entitlement to try and monitor my coffee consumption, he threw his hands in the air and told me that I've got to take better care of myself, all while walking out of the room and basically ending any kind of discussion before it started. But that brings me back to my main point. I have no idea why my dad cut down my hibiscus. I mean, I didn't even know he was in the garden while he was here. He's so sneaky for literally zero reason. It wasn't in their car when they left. I mean, did he give it to somebody? Truly, I can't think of who would even want that. I mean, did he plant it somewhere else? If he wanted a couple of flowers, I would have without any hesitation given him some. But apparently, it's beneath him to ask for anything. I'm honestly not sure how or when I want to inquire about what happened to it. I could go on the offensive, I could finally disengage once and for all, no warning and no discussion, but I think that I'm just too cut down for that though. It's like he knows who I am, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Honestly, I'm surprised you still let them near your property. If I was in your shoes, the first thing I would do is call them up and say, hey, what happened to my hibiscus tree? And I would call the dad directly. I would say to him, listen, I need to know if you did something to my back garden, because if it wasn't you, I need to call the police and make a report. I mean, come on, that is practically destruction of property, or at least some kind of vandalism against your back garden. And then hopefully he can fess up to something that he might have done. And I'm willing to bet that he's the one that messed with your hibiscus tree. He probably went in there and did something to it, chopped it down because he didn't like it, or just straight up stole it. And with your dad's track record, I honestly would not be surprised if he did that. But here's the thing, if I was in your shoes and he really did do this, I would no longer allow him back on my property. I would say this is the final straw. I'm not allowing you near my family or my property ever again. And honestly, it really sounds like you need to start standing up for yourself. Your dad's been trying to exert his control over you your entire life. He's been messing with your dog, your car. He's been trying to monitor how much coffee you drink. He will just throw away things and replace it with what he likes. It's all incredibly intrusive and so unfair. Like for reference, the original poster is 34 years old. I think it's about time to stand up for yourself and not allow anybody to push you or your family around anymore. Honestly, the next thing I would do, since he clearly can't be trusted at your house, is to set up cameras all over your property. Maybe even change your locks if he has a key to your house. Like, this guy sounds incredibly intrusive, and obviously we can't put it beyond him that he might try to break into your house or into your back garden again. So hopefully you can learn how to stand up for yourself and try and defend your property and your house. house, because your dad sounds like an awful piece of work, and I honestly think if you let this slide again, he will just keep coming back to mess with you more. My entitled brother ruins my birthday by showing up to my Airbnb and getting absolutely plastered, causing a massive scene in front of me and my friends, as well as spoiling the entire night. And I'm honestly so blown away by his entitlement, as well as his lack of control over his addictions. Here's what happened. So I'm a 24-year-old female, and I celebrated my birthday earlier this year. From my 18th birthday until now, something has always happened on my birthday that ends up ruining the day for me. I made it a point this year to plan and do things I enjoyed on my day. I ended up renting an Airbnb by the lake about an hour away from where I was living. I invited about 8 people to come spend the weekend there with me, and my birthday was on a Sunday, so I had the Airbnb from Friday night to Monday morning. My friends and I had made plans for Friday and Saturday, but what I was most excited for was Sunday, my actual birthday. I decided I wanted to have a cookout. I wanted to get completely smashed. I wanted to smoke and just have a good time. My friends and I made a menu, we planned who was cooking what, and I even invited a few other people to come drop by for the day. I was excited, and everything was going good. Well, earlier on Sunday, my brother, who's 37 years old, called me to wish me a happy birthday. Now, me and my brother don't have the best relationship. I have 2 brothers, but I'm only on speaking terms with one. Both of my brothers are addicts with mental health issues that are fueled by their addiction. The brother that called me has been in and out of jails, rehabs, psych wards, and much more ever since I was 10 years old. And this has taken a huge toll on me and my family. And as a result, me and my brother have had periods where we do not speak. And this has gone on for years at some point. However, when he called me on my birthday, we were kind of in an okay place. He asked me what I had planned, and I told him I rented an Airbnb, and my friends and I were cooking out. Instantly, I realized that was a bad idea, because he took that as an opportunity to invite himself. He kept asking for the address, and I first let him know that all my friends were under the age of 26, so he would be very much out of place. But even still, he still insisted on coming along. Then, I was brutally honest and told my brother I didn't want him to come here and ruin my birthday. My brother's current biggest temptation was alcohol. He was doing other things, but he was also mixing that with getting drunk every day. And when my brother drinks and does his substances, he ruins things. But he promised me that he wouldn't say anything to upset me and that he wouldn't drink too much. I tried for about 30 minutes to get him to not come, but he continued to insist. And at that point, I just wanted to start enjoying my day. So I sent him the address and I told him to let me know when he was on his way. And this proved to be a massive mistake. I start cooking by the time my brother calls to let me know that he's coming. He says that his friend is bringing him there and also coming along for the party. And this was strike one. My brother only has friends who are addicts just like him, who are also his age. So I just knew this was going to be an issue. While we were cooking, I noticed that we didn't purchase enough hamburger buns and we had cheese for the burgers. So I asked my brother if he could stop on the way over here and pick some up from the store. He then tells me to send him $20 for groceries. And that honestly was strike number 2. When he arrives, he immediately gets out of the car and I can already tell he's been drinking. He is slurring his words, but he's in decent spirits, so I just let it go. I meet his friend who is exactly what I described above, and I take them inside to meet my friends. My brother asks where the drinks are and I show him the bottles in the fridge and asked him if he needed me to pour him a drink. And so I went ahead and did just that. Now keep in mind, we had maybe 4 bottles left at the time. 2 communal bottles, 1 bottle that was one of my friends, and 1 bottle that was actually mine. I had one that was specifically mine because I knew nobody else drank this particular brand, but also it was my birthday. So I got what I wanted and I poured my brother a drink out of this bottle. This was also the first drink from that bottle that I poured that day. I had been cooking after all, so I didn't even have an opportunity to start drinking yet. Everyone eventually goes out back to smoke and I hear my brother walk out back. He then proceeds to tell my friends, "I don't smoke, but my friend does. Make sure y'all pass him the J while it's in motion." So my brother was expecting my friends to smoke his friend out for free, especially when they didn't bring anything for themselves. And that was strike 3. My brother then starts making little comments about my outfit, making that strike 4. He starts telling me that I need to go change because my outfit is too revealing and he simply won't drop it. I keep letting him know that this is my birthday and it's my Airbnb, while also saying that he did not have to be here if he didn't want to. I also explained that his comments were unnecessary and they were killing the vibe, but he still continued. He then started making comments about my boyfriend who had run out to grab something for me. My brother isn't a fan of my boyfriend, but I don't really care. My brother has no authoritative power over me to tell me anything about anyone. I then reminded him before he came along that he promised he wouldn't be any trouble. And he then said, as my big brother, he's allowed to say whatever he wants. This eventually turned into a big argument where I let him know that he had one more time to upset me on my birthday and then he would have to leave. But he said that I couldn't kick him out. He continued arguing until some of my friends calmed me down and I went outside with them to have a smoke. I eventually came back inside to have a drink because, you know, I kinda need it right now, and my entire personal bottle was empty. I mean, it went from a full bottle to not even a sip left in less than 1 hour. I immediately started flipping out, and I find my brother and I start going in on him. I start screaming about how he's been nothing but a nuisance since he called this morning, how this is why I hate hanging out with him and inviting him to places, and on top of that, all I wanted for my birthday was my bottle, and he decided to finish off the entire thing. His only defense was that there were 3 other bottles in the fridge, and he didn't think that it was that big of a deal. How I know how high his alcohol tolerance is, and how that tiny drink I poured didn't do anything, and he was just trying to calm down after our previous argument. Then he said to me, and I quote, "Can't your friends just buy you another one?" But guess what? It's Sunday. I live in a state that doesn't serve alcohol on Sundays, and on top of that, the Airbnb was in the middle of nowhere. At that point, I absolutely lost it. I told him he had to leave, and if he didn't leave, my friends were putting him out. I called his girlfriend and told her that she needed to tell my brother to get out before things got really ugly. His friend tried to plead his case, while my brother sat in the car saying nothing to me, but I wasn't hearing it. I literally would not stop yelling until they were off the property. Once they finally left, I just started crying so hard. It was the only thing I could do at the time. I cried, I let it all out, and then I had a great rest of my birthday. When my boyfriend got back, he heard about the bottle, and I don't know how, but he left for an hour and a half and came back with an entire crate of alcohol. It wasn't the specific brand that I had previously, but I still really appreciated the effort. The food was great, and my friend showed me so much love. And after it was all said and done, I didn't speak to my brother for several months. He refused to apologize because he didn't think he did anything wrong. He thought I was unfairly picking on him because of our history. But overall, this is a lesson learned, and I certainly won't let this happen to me ever again. Wow, your brother sounds awful. He literally swooped in and ruined your birthday. He chugged all your drinks, he made a massive scene, and he did everything that he promised that he wouldn't do. And that really is a shame. Here you are going out on a limb and thinking, well, maybe your brother won't be an idiot this time. But boy, did he prove you wrong. He came in and he practically spoiled the evening. And that's not fair for you. You really did not deserve that. But also, with that in mind, I really hope you don't cave in to your brother's demands ever again. Like, you knew in your gut he was gonna act like this. When he called up asking for the address, you knew exactly how he was gonna act. You knew he was gonna try and ruin your night, and you knew that this was not gonna end well, but you did it anyways. And that is seriously unfortunate. So please, for the sake of your own sanity, don't let your brother get involved in anything like this ever again. Don't be a doormat for his own guilt tripping, and don't allow him to steal any more special moments in your life, because the way he acted was so unfair, and you absolutely did not deserve to be treated the way that you did. My husband demanded a paternity test after my newborn daughter didn't look anything like him, and after getting treated like garbage by my husband and his extended family, I finally caved and got the paternity test just to prove once and for all that I was not unfaithful to my husband. And now my husband and his extended family are feeling extremely guilty and apologetic for what they did. But at this point, I am so hurt over the situation that I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My husband and I have 3 children. Our sons look exactly like him, dark skin and dark eyes and hair, but our daughter doesn't. She looks exactly like my great-grandparents, really pale blonde and green-eyed, but apparently he didn't think it was possible that our daughter could look like my great-grandparents, and from the moment he saw her, he told me he wanted a paternity test. At first, I refused because I felt it was humiliating and because I didn't think it was necessary, because I never cheated on him, and I hoped that he would trust me, but he didn't. And for the first 2 months of our daughter's life, he made my life a nightmare. He didn't want to hold her, even if she cried desperately while I was doing something else. He never woke up at night to help me with her. He never helped me with anything, and that hurt me so much, because with our boys, he was completely different. He helped me all the time with absolutely everything, and he was always there for me after giving birth. But this time, he left me alone, and it was the worst experience of my life. I have no family here, and his entire family, from the moment they saw my daughter, turned their back relax on me. I don't have any friends here either, so it was just my daughter and me. She is a colicky baby, so it was very difficult for me to do everything alone, and on top of that, to help with our sons. I decided to do the paternity test because one day his entire family came to our house to celebrate my son's birthday, and no one spoke to me, and they didn't want to include my daughter in the photos that my in-laws took of all the grandchildren, so I knew it was stupid to keep waiting for them to come to their senses. Well, the paternity test came back positive, and everyone was shocked, and of course they felt guilty for not having believed me. Everyone apologized, and my husband even cried when he held our daughter in his arms for the first time, and I know that his apologies were genuine, and that's why I forgave him, but I don't know if I can forgive his family. They treated me really badly, and they said some horrible things about me just a few days after giving birth, and I cannot forget their insults or violence. My husband knows that I don't want to see his family, nor do I want them anywhere near our children, and he told his family as well. So these last 3 months, it has been just the 5 of us, but it doesn't feel as good as I expected. My husband is constantly apologizing and crying every time he holds our daughter, and I am getting tired of this situation. I want us to be happy as we were before, so how can we move on? My husband suggested that we should start going to couples therapy, but I mean, how much can therapy even help in this situation? What should I do? This is honestly insane to me. I can't imagine my spouse or even my extended family turning on me like that, all under the assumption that I cheated in some kind of way. Like seriously, that is incredibly insulting. Like literally, no one would believe you. Your husband even was under the assumption, yeah, you cheated. This kid is not mine. They've got green eyes. Like seriously, what is going on here? I'm just gonna say it outright. That guy is an awful husband. His first thought when he saw his daughter is, oh wow, you cheated on me. There's no way that can be ours. Listen, buddy, genetics are weird. Kids can come out looking all different types of ways, regardless of a lot of different factors. So the fact that you would automatically jump to some conclusion that your wife obviously had to be cheating on you is honestly really disgusting. And the original poster did not deserve to go through with that. I can only imagine how humiliating that must have been. Like these people labeled you with a scarlet letter before you even had a chance to say no, that's not the case. And you know what? I don't blame you for saying no, I'm not getting a paternity test. I know the truth and I know that this is our child. And instead of stepping up and trying to listen to his wife, who, you know, he should be trusting, he decided to act like a complete clown. He literally turned everybody against you. He would purposefully not help with his daughter and then act like the best father ever with his sons, all to try and prove some kind of point that was completely wrong. And the fact that his extended family also acted this way is so inappropriate. I mean, they were intentionally trying to leave your kid out of pictures. Like, what is going on right now? That's so weird. Why would you intentionally ostracize a member of the family like that? And look, if you really want to forgive your husband, go for it. It really does seem from what you've described that he is really sorry for what happened. And he's incredibly apologetic, and he keeps crying every time he holds his daughter. He clearly sees the errors of his ways, and I think that is a really good sign in my opinion. But when it comes to the extended family, I don't blame you for being upset. I think you have every right to be angry at them. They ganged up on you. This very quickly became a dog pile when all they needed to do was trust you in the first place. So truly, with all things considered, I don't blame you for cutting off that side of your family. They are incredibly toxic. They've shown their true colors if anything is even perceived to be wrong, and it's obvious that they, along with your husband, even though he's sorry, are very quick to make assumptions about you as a person. And that, in my opinion, is incredibly unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled Karen walks up to me at work and tries to force me to babysit her child for over 3 hours. And I'm still in complete shock that this lady tried that in the first place. Here's what happened. So years ago, I worked in the office of an adult education center. We offered either a GED, an ESL, as well as US citizenship classes, and we had a lot of students coming and going at all hours. One morning, I was sitting at my desk, typing away when a young woman hurried over to me with a little girl around 4 years old, and then she just started walking away. Now, naturally, when she did this, I said to her, "Can I help you?" She looked rather annoyed as she told me she was in a hurry. Her class was about to start, and her babysitter had canceled at the last minute, so she needed me to watch her child. She said to me, "You could do that, right? It's only 3 hours after all." And when I heard that, I was completely flabbergasted. So I told her straight up no, I could not become her new babysitter. I had an actual job I was already doing, and even if for some crazy reason reason I did agree. What was I supposed to do with a preschooler for an entire morning? This kid didn't have any toys with her or literally anything to keep her entertained. I mean, did she expect her daughter to just sit in a chair watching me type the entire time? And the craziest part about it is that if I had not noticed in time and spoken up, I really believe that this woman would have left her daughter at my desk and then walked away without a single word. Now, I totally understand the predicament that the mom was in. I am not unsympathetic, but in what world do you simply toss your child in the direction of some random person with the expectation of free and instant childcare? And how does she even know who I am? Or if I'm somebody who has any business being around kids? I have no idea what the woman ended up doing, perhaps asking her instructor if the child could stay in their classroom, or else maybe just going back home. Because when I told her no, she stormed away without another word, clearly wanting to show me how unreasonable I was being, despite this lady seriously being insane if she thinks that I'm gonna watch her kid for over 3 hours. That is honestly so irresponsible as a parent. Like, what was this lady thinking? Did she really think, oh yeah, this person will watch my kid? Like, are you kidding me right now? Why would you go to a random person that you've never met, whether they work in the building or not, and be like, yeah, you're gonna watch my kid real quick? It will only be 3 hours. It's not that long. Like, lady, are you seriously that irresponsible with your children? You just have some random stranger watch them? And it's not like she even asked this person if they could watch her kid in the first place. They just walked up and said, okay, here you go, as if this is some kind of like open daycare service. That is crazy to me, and I honestly can't imagine doing that to your own child. My boyfriend seemingly wants people to think that he's single, despite the fact that we've been together for over a year. And now I'm really at a loss, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I've been with my boyfriend for over a year, and I'm currently living at his place. We've gone on trips together, I've met his friends and gone with him to social events, etc. But he is never affectionate in public, and people say that we look like we could just be friends. He also has never mentioned me or that he is in a relationship on social media, which is suspicious since he uses it regularly. And this is for personal use as well as work uses. And he doesn't like it if I put him on social media either. When I asked him about these things, he said he doesn't like public displays of affection. He doesn't want the relationship on social media because we will get trolled for our age gap, and he wants to keep it private. For reference, I'm 29 years old and my boyfriend is 39. Now, I think those are fair reasons, but I don't think they are honest. I mean, he showed his last relationship on social media without giving any info about his ex. He mentioned her name instead of tagging her and used pictures where you can't see her face. So I don't see why he can't do the same with me. I also think there's a difference between not liking public displays of affection and not touching your partner, so that people think you're casual or just friends. I think he's trying to give the impression that he is single on social media, or at least not in a serious relationship in the public eye. I don't think he's cheating or that I'm a side woman or anything like that, but we are together every night. And if there was someone else, there would have been signs by now. Can anyone explain what this is? Am I just overreacting or being insecure here? What should I do? Here's the thing, I don't think it's unreasonable for you to be like, hey, we're in a relationship in public, can we at least pretend we're in a relationship? Like, the way he's acting is really weird. It's almost like he's trying to dodge the fact that the both of you are in a relationship together. Like, anytime you're in public, he doesn't, I don't know, put his arm around you or hold your hand, and you're not the only one that noticed. Like, friends have come up and said, wow, it kind of looks like you two are just friends. And that's not the case. You spend nights together, you're always together, and you're in a relationship. There's no reason why he can't show that to some degree. Now, when it comes to social media, I kind of understand where he's coming from. Maybe he's just a really private person or something like that. So to a certain degree, I can kind of understand where he's coming from. But when it comes to him basically trying to pretend like he's single in public, that, in my opinion, is very suspicious. And with that in mind, I really don't blame you for being upset about the way he's acting. My mother-in-law's entitled boyfriend treats me and my husband like garbage. And after trying to have a Thanksgiving dinner with them, we realized very quickly that we are not welcome. So we decided to leave. And I'm so glad we made that decision. Here's what happened. So this happened a few years ago. We were staying with my mother-in-law and her then boyfriend. I was job hunting every chance I got and writing stories in between. I was aware we were not welcome and we were staying in a guest room. Thanksgiving came, and while it wasn't that great, my parents wanted us to come up for the holiday. Our friend was also invited since his family was not in town. We were at the house talking to my mother-in-law's boyfriend's family. Their youngest was around our age and a gamer. He asked if he could play my hacked video game, which was fine, and we found out later we were being made fun of for having a game system and the games that we had. Sitting down, I realized something with the way we were being treated. My husband husband and I were being forced to eat last. All of my mother-in-law's boyfriend's family were allowed to eat first. I went to get a drink and was stared at because I was then asked by the mother-in-law's boyfriend, what are you doing? You have to wait until we're served. We are older. I said to them, I'm thirsty. And I then poured a can of soda out and went out to get my game system and games, basically unplugging it and taking it back to my room. My husband's friend took the cue that we weren't welcome. I asked to go to my parents and I called them up. We left after a small chat with a mother-in-law who was furious that we were made to eat the scraps of the meal. My parents and sisters heard about what happened and were not very impressed. My mother made a great effort to make everyone welcome at her table. She and my husband don't always get along, but he told her what was happening at the house since we were there. I was able to get a job the following week and also made it a mission to work every Thanksgiving to avoid this kind of garbage. I mean, seriously though, the Walmart I worked at had food catered for Thanksgiving, and that included most holidays. Since some of us had this experience, I was glad that my mother-in-law eventually broke up with that guy and also abandoned his family. The fact that they made fun of my husband and I for at least trying to work, and also gaming for me was a stress reliever. I never celebrated Thanksgiving ever since that incident, and honestly, I never will. I always make sure my work knows I work 90% of all holidays, and I don't like to overindulge. I also view this incident as a reason for me to be frugal. Wow, that guy's family sounds absolutely atrocious. Like seriously, trying to make you eat last? Oh, you're not allowed to drink anything. We gotta get served first. Nope, actually, I'm not gonna do that. That's insane, and I'm not gonna put up with that. And honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. I would have left that place immediately and gone literally anywhere else. I am not about to be made fun of by people who do not care about me, and I'm also not gonna be treated like a dog who can't get some food and eat. That's incredibly rude, and honestly, you do not deserve that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for locking the house up before I left to go to a party, and as a result, lock my roommate out of the house because they forgot their keys inside the house? Here's what happened. So I moved in with 4 friends at the beginning of this year for university. I brought up the importance of having a spare key, but everyone said it would be useless because there was always someone in the house. Well, as of last night, everything went down. Before I left, my roommate said that she was going to get sushi, and then my other roommate left for a cappella practice. I had a party for my fraternity that I needed to attend, so I got my things. I left the house and I locked the door behind myself, as I always do. Now, this is important because my roommates are terrible at remembering their keys and always forget to lock the door, even in the middle of the night when everyone is home. It's also important to note that nobody was home. So I'm at the party and my roommate calls me saying to let her in. I said I was occupied and to call the other roommates to see if they can help. She calls them up and apparently they offered to come and open the door for her or invite them to their locations. She turned them down, saying that it was my mistake for locking the door and that I should have left it unlocked for her. I mean, how was I supposed to know that she left her keys? Also, it was apparently my responsibility to rectify my mistake by letting her in. She contacted me again and I told her that I was occupied, but then I get a flurry of text messages calling me a jerk and saying that I can go get lost, and I honestly thought that she was just venting, so I just turned off my phone and enjoyed the rest of the party. I got home and she begins to scream at me for locking her out, and then for not letting her back in, and forcing her to spend 2 hours outside on the porch steps in the cold. I asked her why she didn't get any of her other roommates, and she gave me the same speech about how it is my responsibility. Now, I am very avoidant of conflict, so I said to her, I'm sorry that you were out in the cold, but your poor planning does not constitute an emergency for me. I then left, went to bed, and have spent the day in bliss. She has been giving me the cold shoulder ever since, and has said that she no longer wants to be friends with me. Now, I am concerned that she may be telling the truth, and I don't want to lose her as a friend, but I also don't want to walk on eggshells around someone like that. Am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Your roommate is a complete fool. You offered so many times, guys, we need a spare key for the house. We need some kind of security measure just in case nobody has a key. And then just fast forward to this situation, and lo and behold, this is exactly what's happening. So honestly, how is this your problem? Your stupid entitled roommate forgot her keys in the house, and then she's like, no, you need to stop what you're doing to let me in. And she didn't blame any of the other roommates who didn't help her out. She only blamed you. She seriously tried to act like this was your fault all because you locked the door. Like, lady, are you crazy? Do you want to lose all of your belongings? I know if I lived there, I wouldn't want to lose my stuff. Leaving your house unlocked, especially on a university campus, is like a surefire way to get completely robbed. So no, you are not the jerk. You didn't do anything wrong. wrong. Your roommate is being an idiot, and hopefully next time she remembers to bring her keys, because the next time she gets locked out, it's absolutely not going to be your problem. My husband is going to an event, and he doesn't want me to go with him, but instead wants to go with a friend whom I've never met before. And at this point, I feel so hurt, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my husband and I were looking to go to a comedy show, but he decided against it because of the cost. His friend has messaged him today asking to go with him, so now they are going together. He asked if I'm upset about it, which I said I really wanted to go as well, but we didn't purchase tickets because he said it was too expensive. And I also said that I felt left out. Now, I've never met this friend. I've offered to have them come over to our house for food or drinks, and my husband said that his friend wouldn't want to. I've also asked to hang out when they've gone to play pool or something else that my husband wanted to do, but he has always said no. I get him wanting to spend time with his friends alone, and that's fine. I just find it a bit weird. I've never met him, and seemingly the friend has no interest in meeting me. They don't meet up that often, so it's not something I've pushed for. The friend is of a different culture, and I don't know how much that plays into it though. My husband has said the friend is into comedy, and that's why he's going with him. But I'm into comedy too. We watch the same stuff and we like the same people. I mean, we went to another comedian's thing earlier in the year and really enjoyed it. The comedian thing has really made me feel pretty bummed out, honestly. I would have liked to go with my husband to see it, and my husband keeps asking if I'm upset, and I've said that I've told him exactly how I feel about it. So how do I get over the feelings of being ditched and left behind? What should I do? Honestly, that's really mean of your husband. He really should have bought you a ticket as well and said, hey, I changed my mind, let's go do this. Like, it really seems like he wants to spend more time with his friend instead of spending time with, I don't know, his wife? Like, that is so rude and so unacceptable. I don't blame you for being upset. If my significant other went to a comedy show without me, especially one that we had already planned on going to, but they canceled last minute because of the cost, I would feel very tricked, very betrayed, and basically worthless. So I don't blame you for feeling this way, and if anything, I really would have a conversation with them and let them know exactly how you feel. It's also worth mentioning, just from my perspective, that this supposed friend that doesn't want to be around you really kind of sounds like a sketchy situation. I mean, you've never even met this person. Why on earth would he want to go somewhere alone without you being there? That, in my opinion, is really sketchy, and honestly, with all things considered, I think the way he went about doing this was incredibly rude. Am I the jerk for keeping the engagement ring that my now dead fiance gave to me after he proposed to me before his accident? Because after his family came storming up to my door demanding that I hand the ring over, I'm honestly at a loss and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So for the sake of this story, my fiance who passed away will be called John. This was not his real name, and this all started about 4 years ago. I was engaged to John after dating for 4 years. When he proposed, the ring he used was 2 sizes too big. We went to the store that he bought it from 2 weeks before proposing, and he kept the receipt. We ended up getting the right size and kept the same style. We did plan to have a wedding after 3 years of planning and saving. 10 months after the proposal, John passed away in a car accident. I used the savings from the wedding to pay for his funeral. The day after the funeral, John's brother came to me asking for the ring. I asked why, and his response was that the ring had been passed down through their family for 5 generations. But I told him that was BS, because I have proof that the ring was bought for me less than a year ago. We argued a bit back and forth, and then he stormed off. Then I get calls from John's family saying that I'm a liar and they're still demanding the ring. Then I got a letter from their lawyer, and in the letter they also demanded that I reimburse them for the cost of John's funeral. So I got myself a lawyer, showed the proof about the ring, and that I paid for the funeral. And fast forward, once we go to court, and I'm the one that comes out as the winner. Now, I thought that madness was over. That is, until John's sister recently messaged me. She and her boyfriend are engaged, but haven't gotten a ring, and she wants John's ring for her wedding. After I said no, she went crazy and has been messaging me nonstop, basically demanding that I give over that ring. I have blocked her over and over again, but she finds ways around it constantly. In fact, I was having brunch with my friend, and my mobile was on the table. A message from my sister popped up, and my friend saw it. My friend knows about everything before my sister's first message. I explained the messages to her, and my friend believes that I'm the jerk, and I should just give her the ring. She ended up telling my other friends, and they are all saying the same things. But now I'm kind of doubting myself, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Honestly, I would not talk to anybody else about this. I would go straight to my lawyer. You are literally being harassed by greedy and lying people. They seriously try to look at you and be like, that's been been passed down in our family for generations. And yet you were there, you've already been to court over this, and you've got proof that he bought it for you. Like seriously, that's such a horrible thing to try and do, it's not even funny. Like think about it for a second. They waited one day until they could ask and be like, hey, you want to give us back that ring? All while coming up with this bogus story. And when it comes to your friend basically turning on you and trying to be like, wow, how could you do this to them? While also convincing the rest of your friends to basically be like, yeah, you're the jerk. Those people suck and you do not need them in your life. In my opinion, I don't think you've done anything wrong. I think you have all the proof in the world to say, hey, you know what? This ring is mine and I'm not going to give it over. So hopefully this can all be resolved in some kind of safe way, because the way John's extended family is acting is really weird, and you do not deserve to be treated this way in the slightest. My entitled father demands that I not listen to the doctors who are about to perform surgery on my ankle, claiming that he knows better than them and that they are only trying to ruin my life. And I am so annoyed at his existence, and I honestly can't wait to finally cut him off. Here's what happened. So for a bit of context, in a couple of weeks, I'll be having an ankle fusion. I've been having extreme pain in my ankle for quite a while, and in the last few years, it has gotten worse and worse, and the orthopedic doctor has decided on an ankle fusion. The game plan is for me to stay a few nights in the hospital and about 2 weeks at a physical rehabilitation facility to help me learn how to use a walker. I also have a bleeding disorder, which requires some staying in the hospital, and they decided rehabilitation would be good since I live alone. And as for the walker, they decided that was better for me than crutches, but I also have a wheelchair coming in as well. Everyone's hopeful about the procedure. I'm hopeful, my mom's hopeful, my family's hopeful, my friends and my girlfriend are hopeful. The only one who isn't is my dad. And by the way, the only reason I told him I was having surgery was because I thought it would be better to just tell him instead of him getting even angrier for keeping the surgery a secret. You see, he is very anti-doctor, and in the last few years has been going deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole of alternative medicine. During the pandemic, he wanted to sign me up for this pyramid scheme involving pine needle tea to give me COVID immunity and to cure me of my autism. And not too long ago, he sent a video from an alternative medicine lady who was talking about how no processed sugar and no gluten will suddenly just cure my autism. In fact, he's been very persistent that I'll be a better person for the world overall if my autism is cured. He also believes that mental illnesses are not real, but just fabricated by doctors to take you out and take your money. And that is just such a bunch of BS. And now he's spouting off about how an ankle fusion will not work. He started rambling about how with limited mobility, I won't be able to exercise and will therefore become fatter and less desirable to everybody. Now, I do have a weight problem as well as internalized fat phobia thanks to him. I told him how the doctors will plan to give me modified shoes to help me walk around. But then he went off about how they'll break my ankle. I told him I'll have physical therapy to help me use a walker on one foot while I'm non-weight bearing. And then after the healing, they'll do more physical therapy to help me walk around normally again. And how I'll have a wheelchair to help me get around if I need to go out. He then snapped about how I'm not listening to him and that it's proof that I need family, more specifically him in my life. And what he says next honestly just blows me away, proving to me once again just how entitled he truly can be. He then demanded that my mom either have me stay with her for the entire recovery process or I stay with him for the entire recovery process. But I stood my ground and I told him that's not necessary. I said that we already have a plan and that I trust these doctors. Well, that made him really mad, with him yelling if I trust strangers more than family. But I firmly told him that is not what I meant. And just because he's not confident in the game plan doesn't mean that he has to be doom and gloom about everything. Surprisingly, that made him realize he wasn't gonna get to me and then huffed out that if I want to try, then fine. But if something goes wrong, I'm gonna regret not taking his help. Now, when it comes to me and my dad, I have plans to cut him off, and I'm already mentally prepared for life without him, because nowadays his words no longer hurt me like they used to. I'm no longer afraid of him, and I'm simply annoyed at his existence, and I'm just so annoyed that he will always be an entitled father. Yeah, your dad does not sound like a very nice person. First off, there's nothing wrong with having a mental illness or being autistic. And no, there's no cure for autism, but that doesn't mean that just because you have autism, you're like half a person or something like that. Like those kind of comments, as well as him being like, oh yeah, mental illness, that's not real. Doctors made that up just to take your money. That mentality, in my opinion, is so unbelievably toxic. Like there's no good excuse for that. There's more than enough scientific research to prove that wrong, and the fact that he would try to cure you of being autistic shows to me the kind of father you had to deal with growing growing up. So truly, I'm so sorry you had to deal with that, but in the grand scheme of things, it seems like you're close to cutting him off, because this guy does not sound like a good person in general, and I don't blame you for not wanting him in your life. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for asking a woman to remove her sunglasses just so I can properly check her identification? Here's what happened. Okay, so to give some explanation, my job is at a supermarket. I work as a personal shopper for the e-commerce department, which does all the shopping for the customer so they don't have to come into the store themselves. Part of the job involves running these orders out to the car, which I actually do quite often, and I have gathered a lot of repeat customers whom I am on a first name basis with, and we are very friendly with each other too. Today, I got a customer who was a middle-aged gray-haired woman who looked about as old as my paternal grandmother. I saw there was some beer in the order, which required me to ask for her ID in order to allow her to purchase it. She hands me her ID, and then I say to her, "Okay, can you please remove your sunglasses for just a moment, please?" Now, I was taught that if a customer wears sunglasses when purchasing alcohol, we have to ask them to remove them briefly just to make sure their eye color matches what it says on their card. And I've had no problems with it up until now, because the moment I asked that, she responded by saying, "No, you're the only one who does this to me. Nobody else asked me to do that except for you. I'm old enough to purchase this alcohol and you know it." Now, when she said that, I was taken aback, because nobody's ever flipped their lid over something like that before. I then told her, "I'm sorry, but it is the law that I ask this." And right after I said that, she said to me, "No, it's not the law. Your job is to take my ID and not ask questions." Then she said that if I didn't like it, I could have just called my manager right out and see what she had to say. Now, I knew my manager was going to take my side because she knows I would never do anything to hurt or offend anybody. She's had her fair share of Karens and Kevins in the past and knows that some people in this world are just straight up nuts. I just stayed silent and scanned her ID just to avoid any confrontation. I then unloaded her order into the back of the car in silence before going back inside. And the moment I saw my manager, I began venting to her about what just happened. She understood and was taken aback by what I told her, since she had no problem with that lady in the past. She told me I did the right thing and that I did nothing wrong. Now, a lot of my coworkers who I'm relaying this story to say that I was in the right and that this lady was just entitled and believed that the law didn't apply to her just because of one small detail. But I still need to ask, am I the jerk for asking this woman to remove her sunglasses just so I could check her ID? No, you are not the jerk here. You can hide so much behind sunglasses, it's not even funny. Like with some people, your entire face can change if you have the right pair of sunglasses. So I don't blame you for doing your job. It would be no different if a guy rolled up and they had a baseball cap on. Like, sure, you gave me your ID, but I still need to, I don't know, check and make sure you are the person that you're saying you are. That's not an unreasonable request. And you were literally just doing your job. So no, you're not the jerk. This lady clearly had a chip on her shoulder, and she is just one of those typical Karens who's gonna get offended at pretty much anything that comes her way. My entitled aunts treat me and my mother like garbage right after my father passed away, criticizing us for following my father's wishes when it comes to his funeral, as well as many other details that they simply didn't like. And I'm honestly blown away by all of their entitled behavior, and I seriously hope I never deal with them ever again. Here's what happened. So I'm a 39-year-old female, and I often semi-joke that I am cursed with an overabundance of aunts in my life. While this could be taken as literal truth, I once had a total of 14 aunts in my family, and that's both biological and by marriage, and some of them have passed away by now. Now, the part of this that isn't a joke refers to 5 aunts who have gone above and beyond to make my life miserable in some of the most recent years of my life. 3 of them feature in this story. We'll call them Aunt Jo, Aunt Lynn, and Aunt Rose. And for the sake of this story, these are not their real names. Let's go over some background about each one of these aunts. Aunt Jo is my late father's younger sister, with whom he has always been very close. She's an ultra-fundamentalist Christian who is quite vocal about her political opinion and had subsequently fallen victim to stupid online theories. Now, I actually used to really enjoy being with her, but she's so insane now that I've sadly had to sever all contact. When it comes to Aunt Rose and Aunt Lynn, who are 2 of my mother's younger sisters, they used to be a lot of fun, especially Aunt Lynn. She was my favorite of all my aunts for several years. Both have grown increasingly sharp-tongued and entitled over the last 20 years or so. I noticed some verbal aggressions from Aunt Rose and Aunt Lynn towards me here or there over the years, but I guess I used to just shrug it off because they're critical of nearly all my cousins as well. I started to sense outright resentment from both of them after I finished graduate school. So anyways, this particular story concerns my aunt's behavior after my father passed away a couple of years ago. My dad had Alzheimer's, among other problems, so I moved in with him and my mom in order to help care for him once he became too much for my mom to handle on her own. For almost 2 years, I put my life on hold to take care of my dad. I found it very lonely and difficult at times, but it felt to me like the only moral choice I could make, and I have no regrets. The pandemic exacerbated my dad's mental and physical decline, and after a series of traumatic falls, he developed a brain bleed and had to be sent to a hospital out of state. I mean, there were no hospital beds left near us because of the pandemic. He spent the last 2 weeks of his life alone in that hospital before he finally passed away. Losing my dad that way was excruciating. My mother and I were both quite weak from long COVID at the time. I mean, we were sick for nearly 9 months, and having the end happen the way that it did, not getting to see him or say goodbye after being his daily caregiver for nearly 2 years was honestly so hard. My mother was quite frail right then, so I had to take the lead on making the calls and decisions after Dad passed away. Thankfully, Dad had always been very clear about exactly what he wanted. He wanted to be cremated, he didn't want a funeral, and no obituary, so I followed his wishes to the letter. The day after my dad passed away, Aunt Jo came to talk to my mom. I assumed that she was offering condolences since she and my mom had been friends since high school, but nope, Aunt Jo deemed it essential to inform my grieving mother that her husband of 52 years was now in the deep depths of Hades all because of her, since she didn't make him go to church. She went on and on, telling mom that his blood is on your hands. My mom tried to no avail to remind her that dad staunchly refused to go to church with us for years and years. Aunt Jo became impassioned, reminded mom that according to Aunt Jo, she and I were both agents of the devil who lost their salvation because we didn't vote for her political candidate. And finally, after she said that, she hung up. My mom was naturally an emotional wreck. 2 days after my father passed away, Aunt Lynn and Aunt Rose ganged up on me in a family group chat to bother me about not writing an obituary. I was operating in a mechanical survival mode where I had not yet allowed myself to cry, and I had not even begun to touch the way in which my dad had passed away. My aunts kept on at me for an entire morning until I finally responded that they could write the obituary if it was that important to them. I then ignored the group chat after that. The very next day, I went over to visit my Aunt Lynn, who lives about 15 minutes away from my mom, and I really needed some support because I was carrying so much right then. I was also hoping to get her to understand about the obituary, since Dad had been so adamant about not wanting one. And also, my mom didn't want one either. Moreover, I knew right then that I could not emotionally handle writing one up. Instead of offering any understanding, Aunt Lynn spent over an hour berating and lecturing me for not mourning in the way that she wanted me to. She accused me of being cold and unloving because I had not cried in front of her. She called me an ungrateful, hateful, and spoiled daughter. I tried to explain that crying is something very private to me, and that I had to remain strong to take care of mom right then, but that just made her angrier. I finally broke when I got home from that visit. All my misplaced guilt and grief came flooding out, and I finally felt more alone than I ever had before in my life. As punishment over the obituary, Aunt Rose and Aunt Lynn then ceased all communication with both me and my mom for over a week. Complete silence and complete abandonment. And mind you, my mom, their own sister, had done nothing to them and had just lost her husband of 52 years. She was so frail and so affected by the lack of support that I thought I would likely lose her too within a matter of weeks. She could barely speak coherently in the condition she was in, and she also refused to eat. I finally told off both aunts via text messaging and said that they needed to support their sister, so they broke their silence with her but not with me after that. Eventually, after a few more weeks, my aunts eventually opened up towards me and we returned to somewhat friendly relations. And you know what? I never got an apology, but I also knew better than to expect one. I dread what my aunts will put me through when I eventually lose my mother, which hopefully won't happen for several years, but at least I now have my husband to support me when that day eventually comes around. Wow, your extended family is awful. Like seriously, how could they act like that. For starters, they're like the least supportive people on planet Earth. They literally went out of their way just to put down you and your mother, right in the throes of your father passing away. Like, you didn't even have a chance to say goodbye to your dad, and these people are already all over you, treating you like garbage. Like, what is their problem? How can anyone actually act like that and still try to be like, oh yeah, we're family? No, you're not. No family member would treat me that way. At that point, you just become somebody I'm related to, which in my opinion is a massive difference between calling you family. Someone who I consider family, whether they're blood related or not, is someone who would be there for me in my time of need. They would stand up in my defense, and they would comfort me when I've lost a loved one. But instead, you have aunts who are picking away at your sensibilities and try to judge you for doing exactly what your father wanted. Meanwhile, the other one's convinced that you're the spawn of the devil, all because you didn't vote the way that she did in the last election. Like, seriously, what is going on here? But seriously, with all things considered, you really did handle this as well as you possibly could, considering all the backlash from your stupid extended family. So hopefully, in the future, nothing like this ever happens again. I know if I was in your shoes, I would be cutting these people out of my life, because you know what? I don't need that kind of energy, especially if somebody's gonna try and come after my mother as well. That would be my final straw, and there's no way I would ever put up with them ever again. My entitled mother basically spoiled my entire wedding, bossing me around and treating me like garbage, all because I wasn't doing things exactly the way that she wanted it done. And now that it's 3 weeks after my wedding, she is still refusing to talk to me, and she has yet to apologize for the way she treated me. And at this point, I seriously am not sure what to do. Here's what happened. So to start things out, there's a lot of context leading up to the drama that I'm about to describe, but I'll do my best to sum it up. But basically, my partner and I have decided to have a child-free wedding, and my brother and mother were absolutely horrified when they found out about this. They tried to say I was ripping the family apart and all this other garbage. Fast forward a few months, and my brother has largely moved on, and my mother is trying her best, but still has an occasional outburst about it. Now, the day before my wedding, everything just goes south incredibly quickly. My other brother, who honestly, bless him, is the only person who didn't upset me during the planning of the wedding, calls me up and says that he has COVID, and that's honestly really bad. We have a number of vulnerable people coming, and I cannot risk anyone getting sick. I'm very close to him, and I'm devastated that he can't come along. I call my mother in tears, and instead of reassuring me that the wedding will still be lovely or anything like that, she admits that the wedding's gonna be garbage and is largely upset about all the food that she's bought that will now go to waste. So at this point, I'm furious, and we agree she insinuates that everyone thinks less of me because of my wedding being child-free. She then essentially emotionally blackmails me into inviting my sister-in-law and my young niece, because if I don't, she won't have anyone to talk to. I then said I was glad I was becoming a member of a different family, which is not my finest moment, but admittedly, I had reached the end of my rope. Fast forward to that evening, and I'm heading to my mother's place for the night with my maid of honor. I call my mother to let her know that we're on our way, and she is absolutely hammered. She can barely string together an entire sentence. We arrive, and I have to look after her. My maid of honor makes us dinner, we have to collect the flowers without her, and neither of us can drive. I'm trying to sober her up. All the while, she's phoning and messaging her friends, telling them that my wedding is a disaster. So yeah, thanks for that, Mom. I'm so angry by this point that I can barely keep it together. The wedding day arrives, and all things considered, it was an absolutely wonderful day. My mother barely spoke to me, and we haven't even spoken properly since the wedding, and that was about 3 weeks ago. And of course, there was no apology to be found. Absolutely nothing. The kicker is that her response to my brother, when he said how hurt I am, was to say, oh, we're both hurt. So there is a better chance of Hades freezing over than her actually taking responsibility for her actions. I'm honestly at a loss here in how to move forward. I don't want to speak to her first because I know she won't apologize, but I don't think I can just brush this under the carpet either. Am I overreacting here? What should I do? Honestly, I don't think you're in the wrong in the slightest. Let's get some things out of the way first and foremost. Your mom sounds awful to deal with. She sounds like the kind of person who clearly wants to make everything about her. Like, just look at the way she was reacting when you said, hey, I want a child-free wedding. Which, by the way, I don't think that's a bad thing at all. Like, it's your wedding first and foremost. But also, kids do have a tendency to try and ruin pretty much everything around them. And that's not just me being mean and being like, wow, I don't like kids or anything like that. I know I've seen it happen, and I'm sure you've seen it happen as well, but some parents aren't very good parents, and they let their kids run around like crazy and do whatever they want. And if I was getting married, that's the last place I would want that to happen. So having a child-free wedding is completely reasonable. reasonable. You're not asking for something that's totally out of line. You just want children to not be there. So for your mom to be like really bent out of shape about that and to really be harping on the fact that kids aren't welcome there, that seems really weird to me. But it's also the fact that she really would not let this go. Like, she was really bent on trying to make you feel like garbage for calling the shots on your wedding. Like, isn't that the one day where you do want to have it exactly the way you want it? Like, your mom is being so intrusive, literally just trying to change things just to fit her agenda and her needs. She was guilt-tripping you, she was treating you like garbage, and then, even 3 weeks after the wedding, she refuses to talk to you and even apologize in the first place. And with all those details in mind, I don't want to be that guy, but it really kind of sounds like your mom's a narcissist. Like, you can't negotiate with her. She clearly tries to make herself the most important person in the room all the time, and based on what you've described, I really don't think you'll ever get an apology from her. So truly, I don't blame you for being upset, and honestly, moving forward, if I was in your shoes, I would just be very cautious with what I tell her. I would probably make sure I have some distance from her in my life, and I would embrace this new family that I just got married into. And even though you were kind of upset, you said it best. You are excited to get to know this new family. So hopefully you can move forward without your entitled mother trying to get in the way of your marriage. Am I the jerk for telling my wife that my parents tried to give our son a DNA test just to try and prove whether or not my son is actually mine? And now, as a result, we are going to be restricting my parents' access to my son. And at this point, we seriously don't know what to do. So I'm a 29-year-old male, and I'm married to a woman who's 32. Ethnically, she is Korean, although she grew up in the United States, and I'm of Northern European descent. 4 years ago, our first son was born. My parents were incredibly excited to be grandparents and have done a great job of helping raise him. Since he was born, he has visually been a carbon copy of me. He has my hair color, my skin color, my facial features. If you squint just a little bit, you can kind of sort of see a bit of my wife, but we've actually had an ongoing joke where I'll sit her down and promise her that she is in fact the mother and that I was never unfaithful. Now, she is tired of the joke, but I find it hilarious at least. Anyways, 3 months ago, our second son was born, and it was a beautiful baby. But this time, with genetics being how they are, he looks nothing like me, but he does look exactly like my wife. I mean, I suppose his skin is whiter than hers, and his hair is a bit like mine, but basically, the little bean is mommy. The first time I introduced him to my parents, I couldn't believe their reaction. They were so excited until they saw his face, and then I saw unmistakable disappointment, followed by compensatory false enthusiasm. I immediately figured out why, but I haven't brought up the topic. Well, last Saturday, my parents were by having a visit. My mother insisted on putting him to bed while my father and I were having a couple of beers. About 15 minutes later, after she left the room with him, I said that I was going to go check on her, but my father was oddly insistent that I not. I knew something was up, so I walked into her putting a little swab into a plastic container, and I knew exactly what it was. My mother was shocked when I walked in and whispered that I should in no circumstances tell my wife, who was sleeping in another room. I said okay, and then my mother made me promise, and I ended up promising that I wouldn't say anything. But you know what? The moment they went home a few minutes later, when my wife woke up, the first thing I did was tell her, because there's no way I'm gonna let something like that slide. She was horrified. I completely agreed with her sentiment and promised I had absolutely no doubt in my mind about the paternity of our second son. Then she said that she really didn't want them to see the baby, to which I completely agreed. My wife called them the next morning and told them she knew everything, and now they are furious. They insist they never even sent the sample, and they better not have, because I don't want my son's DNA in some database that will probably erroneously link him to the Zodiac person or anything like that. My parents and sisters think I shouldn't have told my wife, and they think that I should convince her to get over it. But I truly don't think that I was in the wrong, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Your family is insane if they can honestly think for a second that you're gonna keep this from your wife. Your parents crossed a serious boundary. They literally tried to have a DNA test of your son. Like, think about that for a second. They tried to send his DNA off just to somehow prove that your wife was not faithful with you. Like, seriously, that is insane behavior. And I don't blame the both of you for saying, nope, you're never seeing our kid ever again. Your parents and your sisters are completely wrong. They are the jerks in this situation. I mean, how can you even justify this? There's no way this is appropriate under any circumstance. Also, I'm pretty sure it's illegal to take somebody's DNA, specifically the child's DNA, without the parents' consent. And why would they give that consent in the first place? They know that that is their child. So no, you are are not the jerk in this situation, your parents are awful, and the fact that they would try to do that and then make you swear not to say anything is honestly just so toxic. Honestly, halfway through reading this, I was worried that you weren't going to do the right thing. But thankfully, you are a good husband, and you absolutely did the right thing. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled customer demands that we tell him exactly how to get to our store, all the while refusing to use any kind of application or even Google Maps just to help them get to our store. And I'm just so blown away by their entitlement as well as how utterly clueless they were. Here's what happened. So I work in a specialty store, and this story happened a while ago. I was behind the register, and I noticed one of the assistant store managers has been on the phone for a very long time. Normally, phone calls only take a few minutes, as it's normally just customers asking a question or two about our inventory, as well as our return or exchange policy or stuff like that. Now, the phones are behind the registers, and there are two ways to get behind the counter and to the registers and the phones. Because this was a busy day, all registers are being manned. Sometimes during a lull in the crowd, us cashiers will leave the counter to stock the shelves, fill in, or just to talk to customers. When I see the line is getting long, I start heading back to the registers. However, the assistant store manager is still on the phone with the customer and is looking pretty irritated at this point. Unfortunately for me, she is in my path, and the other way behind the counter is blocked by customers and other cashiers. Instead of asking her to move, I decide to duck underneath her, which ended up with me losing my footing and hitting the counter, but that's a different story. When she finally gets off the phone, she sighs and gives me a very exacerbated look. She explains that a customer was trying to get to our store to do an exchange or something like that, but she didn't know where we were. Instead of going into Google Maps or something like that, she decided to ask the manager for directions and wasn't understanding the directions. Fast forward, and later on the phone rings, and I was the unfortunate person to answer the phone, and it was the same lady. And the following conversation is what happened next. I say to her, "Thank you for calling our store, how can I help you?" The lady on the other line then says, "I'm trying to get to your store, can you tell me where you are?" So I do just that. I tell her what shopping center we're in, as well as what stores were close by. She then says, "No, like, can you tell me how to get there?" I say to her, "I'm sorry ma'am, I don't understand." This lady then goes on to say, "I'm on the highway heading south towards your city. What exit do I take and what road should I take?" At this point, I see why the assistant store manager was so upset. I'm thinking to myself, oh no, this is going to be such a pain. So I start describing exactly what she needs to do. I tell her the exit she needs to take, I tell her the road that we're on, as well as detailed instructions with very specific directions in order for her to get to our store. But none of that mattered. She responded by saying, "Oh, I didn't get that. What exit should I take?" For the next 15 minutes or so, I was repeatedly telling the lady instructions on how to get to our store, and she was still not getting it. I had customers to check out and other things to do, but I was stuck on the phone with this woman because everyone was so busy and no one would be able to answer the phone. I was so close to telling the lady to just use Google Maps or something like that and then just hang up on her because, oh my gosh, like seriously, this was so annoying. I can't remember how the call ended, but I told the manager about the woman who called and she laughed in sympathy. I went off on my break not long after and the lady managed to get to the store. I didn't get to see her, but I was told that she was an older lady, but not too old to not know how to use a phone. Sometime after I came back from my break, the woman calls again. And yet again, I was the unfortunate soul who had to answer the call. I can't remember what happened exactly, but apparently there was something wrong with the exchange and she wanted to know what she could do about it. So once again, I was stuck on the phone for a long time. When she finally hung up, I honestly regretted taking my break because I was so irritated and I definitely needed some time to cool off. Yeah, that sounds really annoying. I totally understand where the original poster's coming from because I've been in that exact situation before. It's like, why can't these people literally just download Google Maps or any other like GPS application to get them where they need to go? Like seriously, it's not that hard. And I know personally I always ran into this, but I would hate it when people would be like, "Wow, you work there. How do you not know how to get there from where I'm at?" And you just want to respond and be like, "Really, buddy? Are you kidding me right now? I don't know this place like the back of my hand. I know the route that I take and that's it." So yeah, I know exactly what you're going through here. I've dealt with this myself before, so I completely sympathize with you being stuck on the phone with this weird, clueless old lady. An entitled Karen demands that I take her to the Applebee's in the mall that I'm walking into. And even after I told her that the Applebee's closed and that it doesn't exist there anymore, anymore, she decides to follow me, clearly determined to talk to whoever my manager is just to try and get me in trouble for not complying to her every demand. And I've honestly never been more blown away by somebody else's entitlement in my life. Here's what happened. So this story happened about 8 years ago, and where I used to live, there was this small mall where on one side there was this big entryway. The first floor had a TJ Maxx and a few other small places that were always changing, and the second floor had a grocery store and some other vacant spots, with the third floor being a movie theater. On the other side was restaurants on the first floor and a small entryway with an elevator that went to the back of the second floor and the movie theater. One day I was meeting my then boyfriend for a movie, and the showtime was cutting it close to when I got off work, and I had a late call that got me out of work pretty late. So I was honestly in a giant hurry. I worked in an office, and I was still dressed in a skirt suit, and I was wearing high heels trying to rush down the street, just so I wouldn't miss anything more than the previews. There has been an Applebee's in one of the restaurant spaces that had closed like 6 months before this incident. It was clearly closed and still looked like an Applebee's that closed. It had all the right signage up, but there were newspapers in the windows, as well as a printed paper suggesting people visit a neighboring city's Applebee's while also giving it its address. So there was no way that you could possibly confuse that this was indeed a former Applebee's. So I'm just running along, and at that moment, a lady gets out of her car parked on the street near me, and she then starts yelling at me. She says, "Excuse me, where's the Applebee's?" But I just keep walking, and I say, "It's closed." She starts running behind me and says, "Where is it? You should take me there." Now at this point, I'm kind of freaked out, so I just say no, and I keep walking. It isn't very far to the tiny elevator room, so she follows me in, and her husband or boyfriend or whoever, I'm not really sure who they are, they come in as well. She begins to yell at him about how I won't tell her where the Applebee's is, as well as something about meeting her son or her daughter, or something like that, and how important it is that they get this right. So I'm now very awkwardly waiting for the elevator, and she just keeps going on, talking to the guy about how she is going to speak to the manager and let them know that I wouldn't take her to Applebee's. And when I heard that, I was totally baffled. Like, I don't work in the mall, let alone at the closed Applebee's. I am wearing business professional work clothing. She saw me walking to the building, and I don't have a name tag. There is nothing that could lead her to believe that I work at Applebee's, but maybe she was trying to follow me to a different job? I honestly wasn't sure. Finally, the elevator comes, and all the while, she is still talking to the guy about how she can't believe I wouldn't just take her to Applebee's. It ends up being a long ride because for some reason, someone had left the grocery store with bags and decided to take the up elevator instead of waiting for it to go back down. So I hear in detail about how she is going to talk to the manager. Now at this point, I don't even understand what she thinks is happening, but I just refuse to engage in the situation. I mean, I really should have just gotten off the elevator altogether. We finally get to the movie theater and she keeps following me to the desk area. My boyfriend had left a ticket for me there. We actually saw so many movies at the time that the worker recognized me and just handed it to me. Confused, the lady goes, "I want to speak to her manager." And he of course goes, "Well, that's not really gonna work because she doesn't work here." And as I'm walking away, I hear her shout out, "Well, she wouldn't take me to Applebee's." Now, I just kind of stopped walking when I heard this because I want to know what is going to happen. And that's when this guy straight up says, "Well, that's because it's closed." This lady literally crumpled to the floor and started screaming, "This is a movie theater." At that point, I just went in, so I have no idea what she thought had happened. Like, did she really think she followed me to an Applebee's that looked like a movie theater? The best part about it was the guy with her never talked and just nodded along the entire time. And I'm sure at that point, he had long since learned not to bother her when she's having a freak out. Wow, that lady was absolutely insane. Like, she just completely ignored you when you were like, "Yeah, Applebee's is closed." Like, why would you lie about that? And also, why would she try to then be like, "Ooh, I'm gonna talk to your manager. I'm gonna get you in trouble." For what? For telling the truth? And how on earth would you get me in trouble? Like, seriously, this lady was super crazy. But I think you handled that perfectly, and you chose not to engage in this weird lady's behavior, because I'm pretty sure this lady was probably looking for some kind of argument, and by avoiding it, you never gave her the satisfaction of trying to lash out. The entitled owner of the restaurant I work for leaves me alone with a trainee in the middle of the busiest service we've had in a long time. So I decided to stand up for myself and tell him enough is enough, and that I would not be taking this anymore. Here's what happened. So for a bit of a disclaimer, I'm a Frenchman working in Paris, and the whole philosophy of restaurants and service industries overseas is very different here, especially when compared to the United States. But as some backstory, I'm a 24-year-old male, and I've been working at a fancy restaurant for over 10 months now, and many times I end up being the only person in the front of house. That means I do all the drinks, I wait on tables, I take orders, I clean and close after service all by myself, and the restaurant has in total about 68 seats. This has been mostly manageable so far because the shifts I end up taking alone are for the most part pretty slow. Now, it does mean that there's no breaks and no mistakes are allowed at all, but I somehow manage to get by. I've even gone up to around 30 guests alone in a single shift, which is doable when they don't come in at the same time. Usually when there are a lot of bookings, the manager of my boss's other restaurants comes in and helps me out, but he's been sick for about a month now, and things just keep going downhill very quickly ever since then. Now fast forward to yesterday's dinner service. The owner told me a few days ago that there was going to be a trainee, and that he would help me as well since we had more than 30 bookings already. I had done lunch service alone and everything had gone okay. I opened the restaurant at 6 p.m. for dinner service, and there's no signs of the owner or the trainee. The owner usually arrives at around 7 o'clock when he comes to help out, so I honestly didn't think much of it at the time. But as time continues, I'm starting to stress out. I have a total of 18 guests that have booked for 7 p.m. What if the owner told the trainee to come in at 7 and he shows up even later than that? Well, the trainee arrives a little bit before 7 o'clock. It's a very nice young lady around my age, and it's then that I start showing her around. I don't have a uniform for her, and I am interrupted by the guests who start coming in, so I told her to wait, and I texted the owner, who said he would be there in 5 minutes. The owner arrives at about 7:30, ignores the trainee, and hands me the shirt. At this point, I'm a little upset, so I just leave him standing there, and I deal with her as I have tables to attend to. As service continues, the owner tells me to oversee as I see fit, and that he'll do the run. I decide to give her a small part of the restaurant, telling her that she can ask me any questions that she might have, and that I will handle the rest. At this point in my section, I have already a 5-top, double 2-tops, and 4 2-tops outside, and people just keep coming in. I have left the trainee with a 6-top and a 3-top, and that's been mostly finished that I've basically taken care of, as well as a 5-top that just sat down in her section. I see at the corner of my eye that the poor trainee is freaking out in her section. Her tables are calling me when I glance their direction. The kitchen is ringing up everything at once. The dishes aren't coming out. I rush in there and I see that the owner has left. So this guy, without telling me first, has left me alone with a trainee in the middle of a lunch service with 30 people already seated. I gave my phone to the kitchen and I told them to call the owner back and tell him that he needs to come back here right now. I was fuming all service long. I didn't talk to him. He is mostly useless anyways. I mean, he usually is anyways. I mean, this guy has owned restaurants for more than 15 years now, but still doesn't know how to pour a beer. As things start slowing down, he starts saying that he's gonna leave, but I tell him I'd like to talk to him first. I start off by saying that I don't know if you noticed, but I'm a little bit upset. The owner then pretends to be surprised and asks me why, what's up? I explained to them and I said, remember when during my hiring interview, I mentioned that I left my previous place because I had all the responsibilities of a manager without the title or the pay? Well, you left me alone with a trainee with more than 30 people seated. The owner then said, I don't understand why in this restaurant you guys complain for so few people. I was gonna go help my other restaurant where there's only 3 people for 90 customers. So I shot back at him and I said, okay, how many of those 3 people are trainees? He then went off on this tangent about other shifts and issues that he's been having with a bartender, basically dodging the question altogether. So anyways, fast forward, and before dinner service today, which is a day after the above events, I sent a message to the owner stating that I would not be supervising tonight's trainee, that it wasn't my responsibility, and I was already in the weeds being alone and everything else on my plate. Just by looking outside the window, I could tell there was going to be even more people than yesterday for dinner, so I prepared all of front of house, meaning the bar and the serving racks, for the nightmare that was about to await us. Now, he didn't answer my message, of course, but surprisingly, he actually stayed and overlooked her almost all service. Guys, it was hilarious. Seeing this guy look at his phone for what we have in terms of sauces at the restaurant, while still getting it completely wrong, will stay in my memory pretty much forever. I did kind of feel bad for tonight's trainee, but I still helped her when she asked me directly, or when the owner said something really outrageous, like that she could take away someone's plate as soon as they're done, even though other customers others at the table were still eating. Now, for what it's worth, I'm already trying to get another job. I'm a computer science student, and I just keep the job in the meantime just so I don't starve. It pays okay, and since this place does get a lot of tourists, I get a lot of people from the Anglosphere that tip very well, especially compared by Paris standards. Wow, that sounds like an awful work environment. And honestly, with all things considered, I don't blame you for trying to find a new job. And trust me, I know exactly what you are describing with this owner. They own a bunch of restaurants, they have all this supposed experience, but when it gets down to the brass tacks and they're supposed to have some kind of idea of how this place is run, they don't know the first thing about anything. They're no longer knee-deep in the bushes trying to figure out this restaurant, as well as provide quality service to the people in the restaurant. They're too busy playing businessman and investing their money that they've forgotten what it's like to be the average worker. So in that regard, I think it was a really good idea for you to basically give them a wake-up call. You basically said, look, I'm not doing this for you anymore. I'm not gonna act like the manager if I'm not gonna have the title. That's a waste of my time and I'm not gonna do it. And I really don't blame you in the slightest. I also think it's really cool that you're describing your experience in Paris, because I know when I've waited tables and I've worked in the restaurant industry, my experience was pretty similar. Of course, it wasn't like some really fancy place like you're describing. Mine was more of like a chain restaurant in America, but I think there's a similar experience there of being overwhelmed and not sure what to do, as well as dealing with owners who clearly don't know what's going on. So good for you for standing up for yourself. Like, you already have a lot on your plate as it is, no pun intended. And the last thing you need is an owner who's not going to do their job and properly train someone in the way that they're supposed to do. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.